Hello and good morning. It's great to have you all here. My name is Katja Schechtner. I'm with the founding convent of IDSA and very lucky to have been partnering with Ars Electronica for the past 2 weeks in the summer school already. And thus, I'll be your host for this morning, where we will mainly hear from our students and what they worked upon in the last 2 weeks. But before that, I, of course, ask Gerfried on this stage to open the festival.
Thank you very much. I will try to make it brief. Thank you, hello, welcome.
You go.
Please enjoy the festival. I mean, basically, this is everything that I can say. Everything else we developed the last many months, the last many weeks, the last many days, many hours. You will see some things are still under construction and not 100% finished. We have this nice saying in our team, don't worry, the festival anyway goes until Sunday, so why should be everything finished? And this is the spirit of Ars Electronica. Ars Electronica is not a festival where we showcase finished projects, only achievements that are being made. We are bringing people together. The most important thing, and the festival, as you might know, goes on since '79, 44 years of history, working in the field of art, technology and society, and from a rather niche and boutique festival, as you would call it, Ars Electronica developed into a huge platform for many, many activities. There are literally thousands of people presenting during these 5 days their projects, their work, their activities. And I think this is the best environment that we can also provide as a nest, as a first breeding ground for this wonderful new initiative that is in the focus also of the festival of today. A new university is going to start. We don't know where the journey will really bring us, but we know we have wonderful people sitting on the steering wheels. You will also see them and meet them today. And we have not only the official people steering it, we have this whole team of students from all over the world and fellows who support us and who support the university in finding, and not only finding, I think creating a challenging, successful and powerful path through all the turmoils of our today and of our future. So thank you very much for really each of you for this wonderful engagement, the energy, the ideas and inspiration that you brought already and that I'm sure you will bring and with which you will contribute to the success of this university and also a little bit to the success of our festival. Thank you very much. Thank you, Katja.
Thanks. And after the welcoming words by Ars Electronica, I now gladly invite the president of our founding convent, Claudia von der Linden, on stage for some welcoming words. Claudia.
Thank you, Katja. Thank you, Gerfried. Yeah, dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy also to welcome you today on behalf of the founding committee of IDSA to this fascinating event. And as Gerfried said, we're all very curious, but we're also very excited to see what the outcome will be. This is one of the important steps for the content kick-off for the new university, and we will do this together. And I think this is very new and very innovative. And believe me, a lot of work has been done beforehand to start this, and this will be visible now. And I think we also can be very proud what has been achieved already until today. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this is the beginning of the creation of an innovative model university here in Linz. Thank you that you're all here today and also for the other days. And as I said before, we are really very excited to have you here from all around the world. Thank you. So, and that you hear now a little bit more about this new university called IDSA. I would now like to hand over to the founding president, Stefanie Lindstaedt, who will present her concept for the new university. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We're here today to witness the birth of a new university. It's a first public university founded in Austria in 57 years, and it is dedicated to digital transformation. So it's a university on digital transformation. So what does that really mean? Let's look at each of those words separately. Let's start with digital. What we mean with this is it's not only the shift from analog to digital. We've had this for quite a long time. It actually stands for AI and data, for apps and automation, for abstraction and computational thinking, for all approaches and tools and ideas which come out of computer science. Basically a toolbox with which to solve pressing problems which could come from the society background, from businesses, from the economy, from students, from everywhere. So this digital has seeped into basically all of our lives, all of our individual lives, into businesses, into societies. And as Bill Gates says, we always overestimate the change certain things bring that will occur in the next 2 years, and underestimate the change which will happen in the next 10 years. So that's exactly what this university is about, understanding the long-term effect of digital, the implications, and also about designing the change. And the change can take different forms. It can be in the form, nature, and function of different things. And this is what we understand of the transformation which we are aiming at. And if we're talking about transformation and we're wanting to teach transformation, this really means that also the university which wants to do this needs to be transformed, needs to be a new kind of university. It needs to be a think tank. It needs to be a design lab for new ideas and approaches. So I have a dream of a university in which students study technology because they want to change society, in which they want to transform the world. That's typically something why people study other disciplines than technology. It should be a university in which young women and men are confident to follow their own ideas and follow them through and really implement them. A university for professors who enjoy teaching while doing research and doing research while teaching. And we will put this doing, this engagement into the center of the attention of this new university. And by doing this, our approach is to intersect all these different disciplines which we will have and drive the convergence of these disciplines forward. Yeah, we will build a university on digital transformation based on 4 main pillars. One is interdisciplinary research, to really do basic research on the intersection of computer science, digital, and any other discipline. This other discipline can be social sciences, philosophy, psychology, mechanical engineering, whatnot, whatever you come up with. So we will try to extract people who are working at this intersection. And we already have a lot of people here who are already working on that intersection. These are our fellows and our students who are already doing this. Secondly, our study programs will not be disciplinary study programs. We will not teach computer science or mechanical engineering. We will teach mission-based study programs, things such as AI and healthcare, or AI and energy economics, or any other thing in which where AI really brings in this transformation of a whole ecosystem. It could be a business ecosystem, it can be a societal ecosystem, anyway, things where you really need systemic thinking. This is one of the important lessons we want to teach our students. And we do this teaching in projects. We want to get away as much as possible from frontal lectures, just as what we are doing here right now, instead of doing much more projects like what you see behind you. All these projects and things which have been happening before we are even coming to this great festival. And finally, we will be the university of the cool technologies. These cool technologies will be for learning, mainly, because in the end, nobody can make somebody learn. Everybody has to learn him or herself. But this can be supported for teaching and for doing research. So this can go from holodecks to the metaverse or any other kind of thing which you can even imagine, learning analytics, recommender systems, anything which goes. And we will be an experimental lab to try this out, to try how these technologies can be used for our projects. Yeah, so we're building this university from scratch, but not in a back room with a few people writing papers, but we do this adventure together with all of you, with the students, with the fellows, with everybody who is interested. And in this point, I want to extend my thanks again to us Electronica, to Gerfried, to Veronica, to really make all this happen here, to invite us to the festival, and also to the Gründungskonvent, all in front, of course, Claudia, Katja, and Christoph Lindinger, who've been helping to really set this up. And today we will hear, or now we will hear from two very important stakeholder groups, our students and our fellows. So, and I'm sitting there with my pen and writing down all the ideas and approaches. You will come up and try to understand most of them, and then if I don't, then I will come to you and ask you for clarification. So when will we know that we have succeeded at a university? And there I would like to end with the words of Mary Love. If our students say the following, I will be extremely happy. Count me among the weird, the odd, the unruly. Stare if you must, then kindly step out of the way. I'm here to change the world, and I have a lot to do.
Thank you very much, Stefanie, for sharing your vision with us. Okay, now it's the right slide with me. Before I go and introduce the idea of the Founding Lab, I want to first thank Ars Electronica for many things, but mostly for their incredible attention to detail. Because maybe it's serendipity, maybe it has a little bit to do with them figuring out that I'm very much into mobility and urbanization. What you see here behind us is an installation for the public to join us later in the audience, but you will see that a lot of the spots are taken by car parts. And it's actually in the ratio that cars take our spots in our cities. More than 30% are taken for parking spots, not for people spots. So it's an installation together with Jung from Matt. And maybe it's a coincidence, but it's a lovely coincidence. Thank you for putting us on that stage. Okay, I'm here to introduce the Founding Lab. Now, while this is the start of the Founding Lab Forum, together with the festival, we had an open call for students with more than 338 applications from many countries, and we've selected a lovely batch of 75 that you will all meet today in various functions because it's very much their day today. An open call for fellows. We've had a lovely application. It was super difficult to select those fellows, but I'm very happy to have them here today, and you will get to meet them in a minute or two. So the students, together with many experts, as Electronica friends and staff, have already worked for the past 2 weeks to prepare the program, because we really wanted them to be center stage. So you will hear the keynote today by them. You will see them performing tonight on the big opening stage. If you move through Ars Electronica and visit all the different wonderful exhibitions, you also will find 6 exhibition sites that the students prepared, demonstrators, in the past 2 weeks to showcase their work. We've also had a media team. You might be asked for an interview, who knows, today as well. And this will be collated to press releases and actually shared with the general public after the forum. And last but not least, a group that's very dear to me, the policy group that I was allowed to advise a bit during this week, who will tonight interact with the politicians, the ministers that are coming, and tell them what they demand for a university of the future. Now, today we start with the Founding Lab Forum, as I said, part of the festival, and after that we go in the fall lab term. What you see here are our students and the incredible diversity they bring to IDSA already, and these are the topics, the workshops, and the 6 groups that you will see exhibited in the booth, the topics that the students worked with, and it had a wide variety of looking at stuff through a very much STEM lens with signal detection and interactivity, though they did field experiments, I think, in the train station, brain-computer interfaces, and also biotechnology and arts, with talking about an external uterus, the future of how we could create more than just a technical world. But without much further ado, I would like now to introduce the fellows. We have 21 wonderful fellows. Not all of them are here tonight. I will quickly introduce them, and then with the mic, they will share themselves, their vision for the future for the university. And to listen to this, I kind of spontaneously changed the program and therefore asked Stefanie Lindstaedt to join me here to listen to the fellows up here. You said you want to take notes, so I take you seriously. Maybe from the students, Luisa, would you like to join? And do I see someone from Ars Electronica? Chiara, is there somewhere? Chiara? Up on stage, please. Thank you. And from the founding convent, Christopher, in the room? Christopher left, Martin. On the stage, just listening. Nothing bad happens. This is all about diversity. No. She actually told me she has to go to work. No worries. We'll be finished by then. Okay, so we have a lovely group of fellows. I'm very excited to have you all here. Thank you very much. We already shared pizza last night, which makes things a lot easier. First of all, Darsha Hewitt, originally based in Canada, but at the moment she joins us from UDK Berlin. And I'm particularly interested, and I think our students will love to hear about that as well, the media archaeology work she does. And without much further ado, Darsha, what's your visions? And you should have a mic. No? Mic. Whatever. Okay, cool. There it comes. It's not on yet. Is it on?
Hello.
Go.
Hi. Okay, I think what's quite important for the university of the future is to maybe like step outside of tradition a little bit. I actually came up with these next few concepts with a couple of students, Kevin and Dipti. So on one side, we need to continue to be collaborative, critical, especially within academia, of the power structures that exist and the power structures that could be and can be. Conscientiousness, the idea of thinking about your own self, the people around you, the environments, and the living lives around us and our impact on them. And the last one, for another C word, we chose celestial. And what we mean by celestial is like kind of weird. Like keep it a work in progress, keep working on things where we might not necessarily have the end point in view, but take a bit of a dynamic way to get there. So that's my position on it.
Gerrard is our next fellow. He's the senior director at Gardner's supply chain consumer retail team. He is a native of Upper Austria, but he changed it for the other Australia. So he joins us from Melbourne today. And please, Gerrard.
Yeah, so thanks very much for having me. For me, the University of the Future is really about interdisciplinary and lifelong learning and really bringing together different parts of society and industry and economy to then challenge real-world challenges or attack real-world challenges. And as we know, we have a lot of them. And I think the most important thing is really to focus on ethical decision-making and really equip students with the compass to navigate the challenges that we have and foster inclusivity and diversity of thought, specifically when it comes to the lived experiences of marginalized and not or underrepresented communities. So I think that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Gerrard. Thank you, Gerrard. And he doesn't only have a real impressive business background, but I think I'm also allowed to share that he's still a student in psychology. So this is exactly the kind of fellows that we are looking for, having a lot of different backgrounds, ideas, and aspects in their lives. Gerrard and Darsha will be joined by Vladan. Vladan is coming with the train from Serbia a little late. He is a professor in Serbia. He was working very much on the transparency of algorithms. And why I'm very happy that he was able to join us upon one or two calls, I think, from Ars Electronica, who has worked with him before, is his great exhibit in the Ars Electronica Center that you should go and check out if you have the time, that shows what materials and what infrastructures go into a specific node computer on which AI then finally can run. Because these three fellows, they work in the infrastructure chapter where we look into what makes the material of a digitalization so that we not forget about all the physical aspects that go in actually building the future of digitalization. Next up is Ariana Salazar Miranda. She's a colleague from MIT Sensible City Lab. We've been working together for the past few years. She's interested in, I know because I've worked with her a lot on different data sets and what they mean and how they can change cities. And I'm also allowed to share that she's an incoming professor at Yale because she just finalized her PhD. Congratulations, Ariana. Please share your thoughts.
Hi, everyone. It's very nice to be here. Thank you, Katja, for the wonderful introduction. So for me, the University of the Future is all about a transformative educational model that can integrate hands-on practice, but also community engagement. So talk to local stakeholders, organizations, to tackle the big societal problems, right? So think about climate change, think about segregation, all of these problems that we face in our daily lives. Thank you.
Thanks, Ariana. She will be joined by Roland van Dierendonk. He has, I also know, many hats, not only the Hogeschool Rotterdam, and he's very much interested in responsible AI. Roland, please.
Hello, everybody. Great to be here. Happy to be part of this team. The University of the Future is a lively playground, according to my vision. It's equal parts about play and imagination as it is about criticality and speaking truth to power. So creating, simulating and testing alternative future paths. Putting ethics first means that data scientists become aware of the socio-political role they have and their position as well as their influence, while future politicians finally become more knowledgeable about tech so that innovation can become more responsible.
Thank you, Roland. And Ariana and Roland will be joined by Paulo. Paulo is, well, this long career, and we've all read so much about his work and seen so many of his work. He's really looking into data sets, what it means, who owns them, what impacts they will have on society, and he works as a freelance artist in this space, and he is a Golden Nika winner, so very happy to have you here, Paulo.
Yes, thank you so much. Paulo Cirio, and well, the University of the Future probably should be I think more involved in society probably, so escape a little bit from the bubble of academia and just writing and discussing among only academic people, and so having more influential role in society and definitely in policy making as well, and nevertheless be creative, and so then also be more involved with festivals like Ars Electronica for sure. So I think this is a great new opportunity for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we've made sure we have a student who has a Golden Nika 1 as well. So, you know, eye level here. So Ariana, Roland, and Paulo will work on our second chapter, which looks very much into the data, the models, and the code that then run on the machines that Gerhard, Darsha, and will introduce. Okay, now that we've heard the first two chapters, any feedbacks on the visions, any ideas that you feel like, I've seen, Stefanie, you've taken a lot of notes. Any short feedback to this?
Well, the expectations are definitely very high. I haven't heard anything which goes contra to my own ideas. I think what we really need to work on, or more, maybe think of more, is this integration of the society. This is more, came up now basically nearly from everybody, and this is something which I haven't thought so much about yet. And so this is a very important input, and we will take this up.
Thank you. I'll ask you guys later. Okay, let's move on to chapter 3. Chapter 3 will then be again on how we physically, how our bodies interact with the robots, the tangibles, like really the interaction between humans and machines. And for this, we have a wonderful team of 3. First of all, Ray LC from the University of Hong Kong, who is very much interested in the narrative of these interactions. He is on his way too. I think this time it's not the train system that kept him from being on time. We're very much looking forward to work with him. Next in his team is the wonderful Edwina Portocarrero. She currently joins us, I thought, from the Bhutan Fab Lab, or from Frog, or from all the manifold works that she does from the Tsinglan School in China. And Edwina has worked a lot on the interaction between the humans and the machines. She got my eye especially because she thought about how to bring these new ideas about technology, about the digital transformation to the playgrounds, to very much early go out, and how we could do pop-up playgrounds with children, especially also from a Global South perspective. Edwina. The mic needs to move one chair.
Thank you. Also very happy, yes, to be here. Thank you for the intro, Katja. I love it when people talk about me without me having to do it myself. So, University of the Future, well, it's hard to say something new after all of them, and with many of them following. But I think paying attention to the different levels of thought, so not only the ones that happen at conscious level, but also the ones that happen when we least expect it. So different levels of thought, diversity of thought, of course. And just hoping that whatever digital systems we come through with enhance physical connectivity. So that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you, Edwina. And with Edwina, we have Nan Sao. Nan joins us from Tulip Interfaces. It's actually a startup that really tries to bring the benefits of AI to the factory floor and the workers there. This is her latest job, of which she currently takes a small break that's a few months old, called Ada, and he's in the room too. Hi, Ada. Nan has worked a lot on how humans and their surroundings, the infrastructure and the robots interact in responsive environments before. And I also know her she is one of the few female founders that we have out there for startups. So she founded a startup in Boston before joining Tulip, another MIT startup as far as I know. Welcome, Nan.
Thank you so much. Exciting to be here. My vision for the university would be because much of my research in the past really deals with adaptive and responsive environments. So I hope that the university will also be adaptive and listening to the needs of students and really equipping students with the tools to grow their impact in the world, and also encourage them to contribute back to the network and society that they built. Thank you.
Thanks, Nan. There now is someone who I probably don't need to introduce, especially not in Linz. It's difficult for me, Dietmar. With Dietmar, I did my first exhibit at Ars Electronica 13 years ago, but he was well known here before. Having co-founded the Future Lab. Now he is at Northeastern University, chairs a visualization department there. And I know also he's been very much interested in how data is represented both in the embodiment, but also in other representations and transformations. And he will share that with us. Dietmar.
Thank you, Katja. I don't know if I deserve that kind of things that you said about me. But yeah, in terms of the University of the Future, I think there is no such thing as the future. There are only multiple possible futures. And so the first thing we need is imagination. And for me, it's less about the topic of AI or data, whatever. It's more about the approach and creating an intensive environment of epistemic pluralism, where a lot of different perspectives come together. And I think, I have a long list of things that would be important in such a case, but I think one of the most important things to start with is a certain kind of positionality, where we have to realize that the researcher, the designer, is always part of the problem, for better or for worse, and we have to be aware of that and start from there. Thank you.
Thanks. And as Dietmar will be part of the visualization group, where we also probably have sometimes issues with data, I've just seen here that with him is Chabao Li, who is absolutely not a senior director at Gardner. But she joins us from the University of Texas. She is a Harvard graduate with distinction, and she's very much interested in how also bio systems interact now with technology and the world, and she joins us to discuss this here. And I've seen her a little bit hiding out in the back, so could you pass her the mic and excuse us for the wrong data set that we linked with you?
I happily take that position.
Talk to Gerhard, maybe he wants to switch.
So my position is assistant professor at University of Texas in Austin. And well, thank you for having me here. I think at the new university here, an outlier can find their place because subjects are no longer have boundaries. Everything is fluid. Perspectives are multifaceted. And the new university pioneers a harmonious bond with nature and across species and beyond human species. Nurturing curiosity, play, and lifelong experimentation to drive this sustainable and equitable futures for all.
Thank you, Chabao. And with this, to Barbara Lippe, our next fellow, whom I think hopefully we did correct. Barbara has a long history of actually, being in the metaverse before it was called the metaverse, or helping create it, and especially the avatars, the visualizations, the ideas that we have about it. She then became an actor, an actress herself, and now she's again working in the virtual reality, in making it accessible, in sharing it. Barbara, please.
Thank you so much. So I think the University of the Future is the university of the heart. We need to educate the hearts first to put this power of technology into someone's hands. And we need, I think, the purpose of it is to save our planet. And the methods are our imagination, fantasy, creativity, play, fun, and a holistic mindset. It has to be open, and it has to start already in kindergarten. Because the teachers are everywhere. It's not us fellows and the professors. The teachers are like they're our little babies that join us. They show us what we really need to do in this university of the future. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Barbara. So we've heard 2 new chapters. Luisa, any share back? Did I? No? Who has the mic?
Yeah, I really love that we actually had 2 mothers here with their children. I really think that for the University of the Future, the idea that to dedicate yourself to academia, you need to focus on that you need to separate your personal from your professional life, that it's not, if you want to talk about communities, I think families need to be a part of the conversation as well. So I was really happy to see that, and I really resonate with the idea of starting from the heart. I have a speech coming about that. But yeah, that was a really interesting point from this chapter.
Thank you. Martin, anything you would like to share?
Well, since I'm the oldest here on the bench, I may also share some conservative views that I've missed so far. So for this super university, I would also like to see no fear of competition, but wishing to excel. And on the other hand, I also have a very conservative view in the sense that I want a liberal university like it used to be in the 60s, where people could study what they wanted and they ended up with a doctorate, in Austria at least, yeah. So I'm not very fond of schools in the sense of very strict curricula. But for that to become true, you need responsible students that are willing to use the time to shape their own life inside university. And I think these are aspects that I've missed and I would like to contribute.
Thank you. Chiara, you next, but not now. So those are the 4 chapters that will happen before Christmas. And after Christmas, we will focus on 2 other forces that we in the founding convent had a lot of fun with in the last few months: media and politics. So we made sure we had many fellows to work with us on this and to reshape maybe our understanding of it, the future understanding in a university, and also work closely with media and policymakers to make sure they understand that the university of the futures that they wanted is actually what they get. First of all, we have Lilo. Lilo is a freelance artist joining us from South Africa. She is very much into fashion performance and into social media and reaching out to local communities in the global south. Again, a plane. She will be here by...
It's already arrived and it's arriving in Linz at 12.
She's arriving in Linz at 12, so probably, so we'll see her in the afternoon. And with her in the media team is David McDonald. David is at the ABC, the Australian BBC, here very much engaged in the audio landscape, which is one of the reasons that we're very happy to have you here. The change in media, the questions that we have with AI, with facts versus fakes in media is not only always visual, but very much audio as well. David, please.
Thank you, Katja. Here we go. Also thanks to everyone for having me here. I'm super, super excited. The University of the Future should be unapologetically experimental, intellectually dangerous, and fundamentally exciting. It will cross-pollinate between fields and disciplines and grow strange and exciting hybrids that will bloom into research and real things that no one has dared to imagine before.
Thank you, David. And while I see a camera, I do not see Civ. Civ Epstein joins us from Stanford, and I can go over here and see. Hello, Civ, good to have you here. Civ has worked on how to figure out how we can combat fakes in media by actually working collaboratively together. And he's also been very much engaged in AI research and has published from Nature to Science to PNS like this. Given his age index, I think he started when he was 6. Civ.
Thank you. So I think that the University of Future needs to foster the playful creativity that enables both innovation and transformation. And I think there's 3 ingredients for that at least, maybe more. Being place-based, human-centered, and practice-oriented, like really kind of taking those seriously. And I think one kind of way to do that is this idea of generative criticality, where we make and we build and we kind of envision the future, but at the same time we're very aware of the critique, the ethics, the arts and humanity, and kind of build bridges between those. Thank you.
Thank you, Civi. And to complete the media team, we have our very own Sarah Kriesche. She's working with Ö1 Radio, especially in the background of science and technology and figuring out for the general public what that means. Sarah.
Hi, Mike. Also radio, by the way, so we're a good radio team here. We have the most beautiful pictures. So to make it short, I wanted really to say what Dietmar said. That would sum it up for me so much as well. But when I thought about universities, there was a huge approach on technology, like from IRC to Slack or whatever. And then there was on economy. How do we make money with all the things that are going online? And I think the University of the Future, to sum it up, and since I'm here at Ars, everyone will know the term, digital humanism. So after focusing very much on technology and then focusing on, of course, economy, with the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think it's now to focus on what do we need? Do we need that? And how can we use technology to make the desired future a good place?
Thank you, Sarah. And just behind you, and for more than 20 years, I would also sum it up. Just what Dietmar said is figures most of it out pretty well. Thank you. Julia joins us for the final chapter together with 5 fellows. This is then on policy making, digital society, and how to negotiate with nature, tech, and people. Julia is the co-founder and managing director of Superlab, focusing on feminism, but she also co-founded Code for Germany. She's advising the German government on digital strategy and probably has fought some policy battles in her life. Julia.
For the introduction. So much resonates with me what has been said, the University of the Hearts, leaving the buzzwords, the AI buzzwords aside. I hope that the University of the Futures will be a university that is built on feminist values, such as care, such as empathy, collaboration, sustainability. I hope that it will be a free, transnational institution that endorses pluralistic thinking. I think the S in the futures, to use the plural, is very important because we're not hurtling towards this one future, but towards a whole array of diverse, of different futures. And while listening to all of you, I had to think of this poem that the digital minister of Taiwan, Audrey Tang, wrote when she started her job. And I figured I'll quote it because it fits really well to what this new university should or could entail. So she wrote, "When we see Internet of Things, let's make it an Internet of Beings. When we see virtual reality, let's make it shared reality. When we see machine learning, let's make it collaborative learning. When we see user experience, let's make it about human experience. And when we hear the singularity is near, let's remember plurality is here."
Thank you. Julia is joined by Alex Putzer. Alex Putzer is a UN expert in harmony with nature. And just a few years ago, I met him as a student at another summer school. He's working very much in the rights of nature and urban nature. And I'm excited to hear from you, Alex.
Thank you very much for being here. I would say that the University of the Futures doesn't just happen. Like, we have to be aware of the decisions of a privileged position, and at the same time, futures are gonna happen anyways. So we gotta focus on the details, listen to voices. It's gotta be human-centered, but rights of nature also non-human-centered, and go beyond disciplines and species boundaries, as was said before.
Thanks, Alex. Julia and Alex are joined by Kamya Ramachandran. She's the founding director of Be Fantastic, which is the perfect name for, I think, our university, if I had a choice. And Fantastic Futures, she has for a long time curated Bangalore's leading art and technology festival, and is very much interested in teaching, learning, and the interdisciplinarity between it. Kamya, please.
Thank you. I think the University of the Future really needs to present the potential of experiential learning. Not so much books and academia, but really throwing yourself in situations for a long time and learning from just absorbing, the body just absorbing around us. And that really to me is interconnected, holistic learning. And therefore creating a space for other ways of knowing with diverse communities that contribute their knowledge to co-creating our global futures together. So really working with communities and people and listening to voices, a lot of threads being tied with a lot of what people are saying, but yeah, I'd say that again.
Thank you, Kamya. There is many things that we should discuss with policy, but one really important question is, what is the responsibility of a technical university within the wider society and innovation system? And guess what? There is someone working on an EU Horizon program, on exactly this question. So we are really elated to have you here, Lucas. Lucas has a background in philosophy from Cambridge and then studied with Mariana Mazzucato at UCL. And now you will share with us probably your ideas for responsibility or some fun.
Thank you very much. I think the integration of the new university in society is a very important issue to address. This is not going to be a university with researchers in a back room writing papers that nobody reads, as Stefanie, our founding president, said. So we need to think about how do we collaborate, with what attitudes should the university approach this. And I propose that we look back to the work of Wilhelm von Humboldt, who thought about this topic 200 years ago when the University of Berlin was founded. Humboldt thought that the university should be a partly protected space in society, which is all about Wissenschaft, the creation of new knowledge, diving deeper into what we can understand. And I think when we collaborate with policymakers, with industry, with arts, with civil society, we should do that. We should interact and be there. But the primary goal, the primary logic with which we do that should be science, should be understanding. And Humboldt promises that if we stay true to that vision, we will be able to make use of very different levers and and help society in very different ways. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lucas. And finally, we will have someone joining the group working with policymakers who's deep in the trenches of policy making based on science. Elizabeth Windisch, she joins us from OECD and she heads their data research team there. Unfortunately, she can't be here today because she is policy making, negotiating with ministers, I think on drones, but I'm not absolutely sure at the moment. We are very much looking forward to have Elizabeth join the team. And with much further ado, I give to Chiara for the last words reflecting on the fellows before, your students get on stage. So,
thank you. I don't have anything to add to any of this, but we do have an opening and we do have a possibility right now that probably comes once in a lifetime, and now we just have to do it. So that's why we're here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Because now it's time for the students and for Vanessa. Vanessa, to join me on stage quickly or slowly. We've talked a lot, the Gründungskonvent, the founding convent, the president of the university, the fellows, and thank you again for being here. But now, for the rest of the day, it's our students and not us.
Exactly. So I was very happy to hear all the perspectives and all the very interesting inputs from our fellows, but really, honestly, I heard nothing new. And that is because you have come to a fantastic thinking space. We have had the absolute honor and pleasure to work with the students that are about to come on stage and to present their vision of what the future of a university can look like for the last 2 weeks. And it has been an amazing time, an amazing ride. And from the experts and the workshop hosts that we had in, I can already prepare all of you fellows, you're in for a ride. You will hear a lot of critical perspectives, you will hear a lot of questions, and they never stop asking. And you were facing challenging times. But for now, I think that's enough from us, and we hand it over to the fantastic Founding Lab students.
And their keynote.
Hello, my name is Amanda Bennett and I am a student from the future. I've travelled here to the beautiful town of Linden to participate in the Founding Lab, a unique offering from the Ars Electronica and the newly founded university, the Institute of Digital Sciences, Austria. I really had a fear all night that I would say Australia, so I'm good. Okay, back. Okay, so who is the cohort of the Founding Lab? Who are these students? Well, we are an incredibly diverse group of 78 students and 21 fellows. We've come from 57 countries from around the globe, and I'm joining you today from Australia. But we come from many different disciplines. We come from gastronomy to physics, history, data, AI science, arts, and even opera and dance. We have been brought together to explore how crisis can be a catalyst for change and how a university of the future may look. Where our disciplines and cultures may be our difference, collectively, what do we all have in common? Well, we are incredibly curious, passionate, divergent thinkers, and we feel like we do not belong inside the usual academic system. We want community and a sense of belonging. But before I say more about the specifics of summer school and how amazing it has been, and it has truly been amazing, so thank you to the team that brought it together, let me set the scene. It's time to get a little bit gloomy. Picture this, it's 2023. We have witnessed a pandemic. Climate change is raging and artificial intelligence is closer than ever to reaching sentience. For us, standing in front of you today, the world has never felt more precarious and accelerated. As a cohort of students studying from every corner of the globe, we reflect on whether our current traditional academic systems have the tools needed for such accelerated problem solving. Over the past 2 weeks, we have made Post City our university campus and Linden's our home. We have bathed in the sunlight by a beautiful lake, danced into the night on a questionable boat, and collectively tied the locals with the question, do you take Sodexo vouchers? We've had fantastic expert talks, workshops, projects, and fireside chats. Fellows, you will soon come to see the value of the Sodexo voucher, we hope. But our time here has been a thought-provoking yet challenging learning experience, where we have had the opportunity to rigorously and critically discuss important impending issues affecting us today. And we were challenged to ask big questions by some of the most brilliant minds in technology, science, art, and policymaking. And like Vanessa said, oh boy, there was so many questions. We have all formed networks and friendships and met potential collaborators with people from different cultures and disciplines. And we have questioned how cross-disciplinary and transdisciplinary collaboration and project-based learning may work. I'm going to share a story from me on how I, as a fine arts master's student, living with a chronic illness and disability, my curiosity extends beyond my immediate field of art into healthcare and science. One of my hopes for coming to summer school was that I could find a scientist to collaborate with, and asking nearly all of the scientists in our cohort, and after searching high and low, I'm happy to say that on Saturday, I found my scientist on the Austrian hillside. Adelaide is a science master from Kazakhstan studying remotely through JKU here in Linz. I don't know if she's there, but okay. We're both incredibly passionate, we found, just a random conversation about AI and healthcare and the potential risks and benefits that it could bring. So despite being from opposite ends of the world and culture and disciplines, the Founding Lab allowed us to overcome geographical and disciplinary limitations, which would usually divide us. So we're both very motivated to work on this project over the next 6 months, and the opportunities are endless. And so we pose a question to you today, one that we have been actively working on during our time here at the Founding Lab. How do we overcome the limitations within the discipline-driven university system? And now I'm going to pass it to a fellow student, Ellie.
One, two. Excuse me for my French accent. Hello, my name is Ellie and I'm from Belgium. Me and my two other siblings were also born and raised in Belgium. By the way, if you see this, I love you. But not my parents. My parents left their country to set us up for a safer upbringing for us, for the that we had when we were not here, born yet. But safer doesn't always mean safe. And just switch the slide. During our time together, us students have discussed the limitations that we have felt in our respective academic systems and to be overcome by this new university. Those frustrations were also brought up again partly in our survey that we did amongst ourselves. In the question where what do we want to implement, what do we see as extremely important to implement in this university as policies? What stands at the top is inclusivity and diversity, which I will focus on now. Switch slide. So for context, I'm a civil engineering student doing my master's in my hometown, and my academic journey has been in a closed-minded and rigid setting. A lot of my peers and myself mutually shared feelings of being left out, not accounted for, or even pushed away. One too frequent example has been to see friends who are physically impaired having to struggle because they are in a structure where elevators and concern are non-existent. Minorities, me included, are not usually consulted to accommodate for the cultural differences. These kids and teachers were more likely to be shunned or bullied. Why queer and transphobic behaviors are still too normalized in places where we are supposed to gain wisdom? And most institutions, yes, have established a sense of flexibility, yet without neurodiversity in mind. We are all very different, but we also all function very differently. And I could go on, but for all those reasons and many more, the University of the Future should assure inclusion of students that don't fit the norm, or don't fit a norm, because there should not be a norm in the first place. And instead, the University of the Future should adapt for us, to us, according to us, all of us. Thank you. I will now hand off the mic.
Can you hear me? Good. Thanks, Ellie, for that really important perspective. I think because the foundation is unequal, and it's because the foundations of university study, because the identity of people and the validity of people in a higher education space is not set. It's not as strong as it needs to be. When we open the black box of university study, we find a really toxic element that runs through the whole structure, which is the baggage around excellence, around performance, and around proving yourself that you deserve to be in a higher education space. I think there's a chronology in university study. You're supposed to turn up, you're supposed to learn until and constantly prove yourself until you're ready to be listened to, or until you have enough built-up credibility that you're worth something in the space. And the reality is that just never happens. All of us are vulnerable to the exploitation, essentially the exploitation of our dreams, because we want to learn, and we want to study, and we want to make progress and work as teams, and we want to take all this good stuff that happens in higher education and bring it out into an inclusive environment. But when we talk about excellence and when we talk about university, we also end up bringing in the baggage of prestige and power structures. So we're all talking about elite universities, and the way we introduce ourselves, I'm from this university, I'm from that university. There's a structure there that already builds in a hierarchy and a prestige into the way that we feel comfortable in a space. And that goes all the way down through the university, even when we're not even doing interdisciplinary work. I've had conversations with people in my own discipline where we do this weird dance, like, I care about my degree, but not too much. And you work hard, but I also work hard, but I don't work too hard. And there's this kind of horrible toxicity that gets built into that. And I was looking at the survey results this morning, and a big part of it, there's a question about grades. Should we have grades? What grades should we have? What should they be for? And there was no real answer to that, except that we want our learning to be valuable. We want to feel like we've had an experience that has been for our own exploration, for our own learning, rather than one where we jump through a hoop to tick a box to make it through the sort of, if you think of the black box of university, you put an individual in and they get shot out at the end, ready for something. But the world's not like that anymore. And that's something that has to be dealt with from the foundations of the university. And the other thing that needs to be built into the foundations of the university, I'm going to hand over now, is welfare. So we're going to hear something about that, I believe, next. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And is this on? Okay. This is actually amazing. I love being surrounded by all my friends, because love is the thing that I constantly have been feeling all these 2 weeks. And I don't know if it's approaching the end of the festival and we are all going to separate, and I'm feeling extremely sad right now because I don't want to leave all those friends. You are my family. We all come from such diverse, different backgrounds, and it's so different, like so different. But somehow there is a magic that we all fitting so well that as if there's no difference anymore, because after all, we are all humans, and although some people may not be identified as humans, and like me, I'm a non-human, but still, I love being surrounded by such a group of friends, and which makes me really afraid of going back, because my home university, as an international student, there's always this kind of groups, and that I cannot fit in, and I just constantly feel so alone sometimes. I know that all my friends are always there, and there's always different professors that I can go to for academic help, and I really appreciate that I have so many nice friends and professors. But on the other hand, I've also so many other friends. I see them so stressful, they're drowning in their pressure, and sometimes there's just no one to talk to. Which makes me really wonder what a university should be. A university to me should be a sanctuary that provides care, provides growth, and provides love for everyone. But sometimes all the professors, they just seem so busy with their own research, with their own academic pursuit, and they have so little time for us. And we do have care institutions, we do have facilitators and someone who take care of our psychological needs, but sometimes I also feel like they may not understand what's going on, since the session is always like 1 hour long and it will take ages to book in one session. So all these psychological needs, all these companies that we need, where are they? Sometimes I wonder, if you are falling in a forest and there's no one around, if you ever truly fall, or do you ever make a sound? Which also makes me picture this kind of new university. What will it look like? What kind of facilities can it provide? What kind of free and flexible spaces can it provide, so that being healthy is not merely for academic growth, being healthy is not all that counts. We should also have the space to be sad, to be angry, to be fearful. And that's the diversity that's in my imagination, and a new university should allow us to be sad, to be not okay. And to be not okay altogether, I believe that's the only way to be all okay as a group. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. I really like that kid. Hello everyone, so this was a section of our student stories, and now this is in our organization, this section of the University of the Future. And what is this University of the Future going to look like? and I'm here to talk a little bit about values. And I am, just like my peers, a Founding Lab student. My name is Luisa. I'm 28 years old. I'm originally an architect from Brazil, but I'm in Korea right now as a member of the Social Computing Lab of KAIST, in the Graduate School of Cultural Technology, or as we call it, CT. I don't like scripts, but I had to come with one, so please bear with me. For the last 2 weeks as the Founding Lab, we have spent all of our time together sitting through lectures and working and discussing in workshop rooms with our facilitators and workshop hosts, or just having meals, having a drink, catching the tram, going back to the dorm, walking through Linz. I must say that when I got here, I was a bit insecure about how much I could contribute. I'm not an artist, and this is Electronica, right? But as the days went by and we shared ourselves and our experiences, our journey, and the things that have gone well and the things that have gone wrong, what's exciting and what's a bit of a letdown, I slowly realized that I did have something to add. Maybe my sampling is a little bit biased, but it seems like many of us came here with the desire to look for scattered pieces of what could eventually be insight into what we should do next. I certainly did. We are all adults of a certain age with so much to learn. Some of us are still coming to the realization that adulting is a trap and that the uncertainty of life doesn't end with your teenage years. What we all have in common, as has been constantly said since we started, is that we are the people who have chosen to stay in between the imaginary boundaries of what our practices should be. And this sounds beautiful, but it's complicated in practice, particularly for the digital sciences. The digital sciences, they are collaborative by nature. They cannot be sustained on the shoulders of individual efforts. They are born collective, not just inter, trans, or cross-disciplinarian, but post-disciplinarian as well. I have been a church leader for many years. I know no one expected to hear that, right? One useful thing that I've learned from the religious context is that we should always be thinking about the intentions, motivations, and values at the root of the things that we are trying to do. And yes, I am talking, like I said, about values, about intimate beliefs and affections, what drives us, what kind of inner world we're cultivating in our own journey. The starting point of the things that we do and making sure that they are coherent with the outcomes we want to see. I do care a lot about the practicalities of the work, but I wanted to give a speech about the type of heart and mind that you should have if you want to be a part of the people who will build this future we are dreaming of right now. Shaking the structures of a world that thrives on exclusion and exploitation, to build our post-disciplinary table where everyone gets a seat and a say in the conversation with justice, equality, accessibility, care. But I have got to be honest, recently I had to admit to myself that I'm still not as understanding, open, and reasonable with differences as I thought I was. Of course, I'm not talking about tolerating differences that threaten the core values of the university that we want to help bring forth. I'm talking about the things that we bring to the table when we take our seat, the way we talk to and about others, our beliefs about life and work, priorities, methodologies, manners, facilities, equipment, skills, vision, willingness, hard work, funding. I studied social sciences in an engineering school, and it's just as hard as it sounds. And I am constantly challenged by my peers because I still have a bunch of hierarchies in my head about the ways of living and working that are good and valid and the ones that are not. Maybe some of you relate to what I'm saying, but I hope that there are more of you that can teach something about the type of respect, compassion, and flexibility we should have to meet and accommodate others exactly where they are, for who they are, and then do something together. The bottom line is that we want to work not just for personal gain, but to bring about change. The frustrations and limitations, there are multiple. There are so many things that we are not happy about, but we will achieve very little if our good intentions don't match the nature of the things that we are trying to build, if our actions don't follow our intentions. It's in the big things, but it's also in the details about how we see each other, how we treat each other, which influence the dynamics of everyday life in our shared spaces. The way we negotiate how much we are willing to give, how much we are willing to lose, who is willing to compromise and give up some of their resources in the name of others,
communicating for resolve, not for conflict, being open about what works and what doesn't work, standing strong on your ground of what you think is fair, being open to being wrong, recognizing that not all disagreements will have a clear answer, dealing with different ways of expressing ideas and thoughts, respecting that some people need more space than others, being less judgmental, more patient in figuring out other people's boundaries, being mutually open to negotiate them. I do not believe in good or bad matches, but I think that anything is possible as long as we want to see it work out. Both parties. I am very people-centered. I care a lot about the connections that we make here, but the thing I love the most about being here was watching how us, the students, and the Founding Lab team adapted to each other. How the Austrian punctuality made room for other approaches to being on time. And the students who were late at first and made the effort to leave the dorm a bit earlier, I watched that. The team's commitment to being transparent about the limitations and what were the things that mattered the most. It wasn't all perfect, but it was sufficient. In the words of Mr. Darcy, being here taught me to hope as I had scarcely ever allowed myself to hope before. As such, I wholeheartedly believe that there is a way for all of the challenging things that we want to work on from now on. Let's be even more specific. 10 years from now, in the summer of 2033, I want to be able to look back at this exact moment, the Founding Lab, and have the clarity of a decade to be so glad that I came and proud of the things that will come to exist because we came together. Yes, some results will take longer than 10 years. Not all strategies will thrive, some experiments will fail, but I hope that as founders, we will be patient without losing our passion, and the hope that things that we want to build will be possible one day because today we have chosen to sit, listen, and act. And now we are done with the heartfelt talk. My friends can come and talk about the strategies, the concrete stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. So I'm Mrinalini, and now this section is going to cover some of the technicalities of what this university can be, starting from how universities have been in their positioning in the world, and how advances in AI technologies and climate crisis can play a part in shaping the university as it is, and then going on to what curriculum structures in a university like this can look like. So let's get started. So firstly, we are going through the fourth industrial revolution, which is about AI, big data, digital twins, etc. And the European Union, in terms of its ideals for higher education, along with other places, is looking at how to make like Industry 4.0 more resilient and working towards it. Now, the way the industry has been going, along with other geopolitical features, has impacted how we study in universities. From like from the stress on research universities to the coming up of entrepreneurial universities, which are more about like startup culture, having incubation labs, as well as seed funding within universities, which makes for a lot of cross flow between the industry and the university, as well as the government and the university in terms of making policy, etc. But what is missing in this entrepreneurial university, and I think we have heard from a lot of people today, is the community. How does this university in this new industrial revolution fit into the idea of the community, both in terms of the local community, in IDSA's case, in terms of Linz, as well as the global community, as all of us are coming from different parts of the world? How does this fit into our relationship with the places we come from? How can we give back? So we think it's very important for the community to be a part of all of this, as well as, especially because things like the climate crisis and the advancements in AI are impacting everyone. So we can talk a little bit about that. I promised Stefanie some diagrams, so here are some more diagrams. And how like the university can involve artificial intelligence. A lot of universities right now are kind of bringing it into the infrastructure now, but since it's a new university, we have time to start from the very scratch of it. Firstly, it's very important to stress upon just and equitable data. How can we build systems like that and build communities of data? There are already communities that exist which are highly specialized but open source. How can we navigate within those spaces, contribute to those spaces, and also create communities of data and like coming together in places like LINS? What would a digital twin of LINS and the university look like? How would the future be? This is also very important given the global, especially the situation in the global south, where you already have digital sweatshops in which people are like labeling and classifying information manually. And this again plays into the idea of equity and justness. And for this, it is very important also to build specialized skills in terms of artificial intelligence and the digital sciences. So we have that on one side of it. And on the other, we have the institute and the infrastructure itself. It's very important to be able to build from ground up artificial intelligence, large language model capacities into academic libraries, for example, and knowledge management. What would it be like in the university of the future to navigate through entire resources of books and like knowledge, as well as like knowledge production that's happening within a university being powered by large language models, for example? What would personalized mental health care look like when it's personalized, although with human supervision of professionals? What would that look like, and what would a personalized experience for a student be? And also, how could administrative work be made more efficient? These are all questions that we can come together and think about when we're laying the foundations for a new university. And then coming to climate change. We have been very thankful, I think, to the strong public transport connectivity in Linz. It's really been wonderful, especially right now coming from the US and just seeing how car-centric everything is. Like, it's wonderful to see a city like so connected in this way, and it just being free for all. I think that's a great foundation and a way in terms of how it connects to Linz to build up like the different levels of how IDSA can function in terms of climate resilience. For example, how might we build a university that from its very building blocks is is carbon neutral? You know, what would architecture like that or urban planning like that look like? And especially, what would carbon neutrality mean in terms of computing? Computing, as we all know, isn't just in the clouds. It actually takes data servers, and a lot of these data servers produce a lot of emissions. And universities today outsource a lot of these data services to companies like Google and Amazon, and don't engage as much with what the emissions of these companies and the policies of these companies are. How can, as a university, we take initiative to go for greener greener solutions in terms of our data consumption and data use? And finally, how can we incorporate the idea of climate resilience into the very curriculum of this university and how it functions within the city? I think these are all very important things. We're all going to be affected. For example, the fact that Austria, the temperature is going to be rising in this particular part of the world. And we've already seen huge heat waves, and the dorms that we're living in currently aren't equipped to deal with this sort of heat. They're equipped with radiators for the winter. But what would like building material, not just air conditioning, look like? What would building material which is more sustainable be in terms of this, which is helpful in the form of cooling? Then finally, coming back to the students. We believe that this needs to be an interdisciplinary space where people come together across disciplines. And for this, here we have another diagram. We think it's important to have like a core epistemic center and values. Their epistemology about ways of knowing and different fields of knowledge is very important as a foundation and building block for different disciplines to be able to interact with each other. Because what's happening in most universities today is that people are getting so specialized, so narrowed into their own like specializations, that they're speaking different languages altogether. We're not being able to make space for collaboration. How can we change that? How can an artist coming to the space understand enough about scientific research methodologies to collaborate with scientists? And how can scientists come in and think about like artistic practices and see what an artistic way of knowing is? And then you have the humanities and the social sciences. How do they all come together? And we think that it's important in this university to build technical digital science skills, but also equip it and power it up with humanities and art-based learning, and pull it all together with project-based systems in which classes that you actually make things, classes which are connected to fab labs, classes in which you have interdisciplinariness in its very curriculum, not just a class about programming, but a class about programming as it would be taught to children in Linz, and how that might engage with something else altogether, with misinformation, for example. So we need to create curriculum and syllabi which takes mission over disciplines and like has a core like a value system attached to it. And finally, I think what resonates with what a lot of people have been talking about, it's important to go back to society and the community. How can all of the learning that we do engage with both the local communities as well as our global community networks? What would it mean to be an alumni of this institute? 10 years from now, we're going to have people going out in the world. How do we connect them together? How do we make sure that places like I come from India, what about my community back there? How do we create a network and satellite networks that are functioning within these spaces? So these are some of the concerns and some of the ideas that we have in terms of this, in order to create a world where we have individuals who are flexible in a changing world. And I will leave you with that thought.
Thank you very much for that very in-depth set of diagrams. It was really cool to see, and that's a lot of what we've been thinking about and talking about. I have a couple of last things to say. I'm a historian by training, so this is all very new and very exciting for me, but there's two things really that I want to say before we wrap up. The first is there's material needs in a university, and we've talked a lot about sort of flexibility, about pressure, about society, about how students need well-being. Students need to be healthy, and they have to. None of this is ever going to work if you don't manage to do the physical infrastructure right. And I just think this is a really important point that has to be said here. And I know you've been trying to get rid of the parking spaces and make it nice, but I think the university has to be connected in lots of you fellows were saying physical space. That's really important, and students have to be able to exist. They have to live before they can learn. This means that it has to be accessible, and it has to be accessible to a diversity of students. This means students with physical disabilities. This means students with immune disabilities. That's really important as well, because as the world gets more polluted, gets more clogged up, we need these perspectives of people who can't necessarily, people for whom it's dangerous to get ill. What I'm going to say is no one should have to work while they're ill. There should be a culture where the pressure doesn't force people to go, oh, well, I'm sick, but I have to come into work. I've noticed the last 3 weeks, we're all very vulnerable to burning out, all of us students, because we really want this to work and we really want this to be good, and we don't want to let our teams down. But these are humans, these are environments, and these are people and infrastructures that have to be healthy for any of this to work. And with a view to the future, I'd like to take a little bit of a view to the past, which is the culture of the university. Someone of the fellows was talking about how the machine, the part of the problem of the machine is always the designer. And we're designing a new university, but we're designing a university. And elite universities always tell this story that it's worth coming to them because they have produced amazing people, or they will make you into the best person. They're going to take you and mold you into something and shoot you out on the other end. And I've definitely experienced a lot of that in kind of old, crusty universities. These are some nice, crusty books for you to look at. Because in these books is learning. But around that culture, it's really important the stories that we choose to tell to ideate and to identify with. Because if we're talking about progress, if we're talking about excellence, as I was saying before, we have to make sure that the foundation narratives of a new university are about inclusivity, they're about accessibility, and they're about a diversity that allows us to take in influences from everywhere. So I sort of imagine it like we're trying to create the structure of a new university, the infrastructure, but the culture is really fragile, and it's something that's going to be very uncontrollable once it starts. And I think it's really important to be careful the way that we talk and the way that we think about it, because it's going to become history really fast. The minute we start saying, you know, the IDSA has produced this person, it's produced this person, it's produced this kind of learning, we're creating an identity for an institution which is going to have deep ramifications in the future. So to wrap up before we reach our Q&A and then we can go and have lunch, we've started with an introduction to the Founding Lab, an introduction to who we are. We've had stories about what it's like to be a student, what it's really personally like to live in a university and a higher education environment. We've moved that on to values, to the deep sort of necessary emotional and spiritual values of what it needs to be like for people to flourish. And we've had an exploration of project-based learning, of facilities, of the necessary stories that we have to be critical of and to tell to grow a new university. And I think it all sums up with the interdisciplinary community. We think we want a university that doesn't make individuals, doesn't take an individual, throw it through the process, and send the individual out at the end into some supposedly stable world that doesn't exist anymore. Because that's what a university was originally for. Originally, you take the person, you put them in the university, they come out at the end and they can go into the stable structures of life, whatever job that might be. You know, you could be a priest and you could, anyway, I think that's a bit fun. Yeah, they'd immediately give you a nice house and anyway. That doesn't exist, that world does not exist anymore. And the university cannot be that kind of closed structure that takes an individual and sort of throws them through a set of processes. It has to be a community. So I want you guys, I think, as a final note, I want you guys to think about how a university can produce a community, how it can be, someone said plurality earlier, I like that as well. It's the idea that the university isn't about individuals, it's about communities and teams and groups that are going to shape each other and are going to shape the future. One point I'd just like to highlight for my own amusement is that there's people here that have been such peaceful influences. Like, we're all so stressed and we're trying to make things happen and we're trying to work and be excellent, but there's people that have contributed so vitally just by existing in a peaceful way. And it's that kind of thing that you have to build into interdisciplinary community. So this is not the end. This is not the end of our presence here. You guys need to go to see our booths. You have to see our demonstrations. We've got policy groups. There's a reporting group. A lot of the media produced for this is out online, and that's available to go and look at. And now I'd like to introduce Katja Schechtner to come and moderate our Q&A, I believe.
Well, thanks a lot. It's actually very easy, Stefanie. Now you just have to deliver. Vanessa, would you join me on stage for the Q&A, as we've done so many times together? Cool. Cues. Anyone a question on here? We have mics in the... Oh, question over there. Mic is coming.
Just a simple one. What would be the possible deficit in the university for the future?
Thank you. That's a good question. So what's a possible deficit?
Oh, yes. Do you mean like what would be lost? Yes. Yeah. I think it's easy to use interdisciplinary as a buzzword, this is how we're going to shape the future, and forget some of the heritage of learning, which is to delve deep and to find things that you wouldn't find if you weren't specifically, massively, madly interested in something very strange. And it's possible that that could get lost in an interdisciplinary university, particularly when you put it all the way down to the undergraduate level. It is obviously a danger that you'll have people that just kind of hop between things. And I think that's a valuable thing that we need to preserve. That's that specific input, that energy to have people to delve deep. But we also need a community where people can come up out of the sort of intellectual rabbit hole and talk to each other and have ideas from each other. So I think creativity comes from interdisciplinarity, and it's an extra rather than it's an extra and a reshaping rather than it is a casting away of deep learning not in a technical way anyway.
Yeah. Another question, Claudia? Sorry, go ahead with the answer.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think what we're really going to lose, very honestly, is we're going to lose some walls. We're going to lose walls between different disciplines. We're going to lose walls between the university and the town. And we're going to lose walls between what it means to learn and know through different ways of knowing.
Thanks. Claudia, please.
My question is, in this world, very nicely and great described, what does excellence mean for you in this world? I'm sure there is a place for excellence, but I'm sure it's different. Can you explain this, please? Thank you.
One of the things that we had the chance of discussing during the founding lab were the standards of performance that would be required, not just from a policy perspective for the university to keep existing, but also from the students. And I think that one of the key points of flexibility is understanding that different tasks should be evaluated differently. Different activities demand different standards, different people should have the right to be measured differently, which is complicated, but we can think of ways to do that. So I think that excellence should not be a general or global or a universal set of measures. But at the same time, I think that the willingness to be here is a mode of excellence in itself. University has always been about cultivating the certain lifestyle, certain mindset, which is why talking about values was so important to me, because I think that if you're not someone who is thinking about the world in a certain way, you're not gonna, this sounds horrible, you're not gonna fit in this kind of environment, which is an environment, it's kind of paradoxical. But yeah, so excellence is going to be doing your best, but being committed. I think commitment would be a good one.
And also we believe that excellence is something that related to individuality. So when we speak of learning outcomes, it's not a mark. I mean, marks, in a way, they reflect your performance, but it's only the standard way. But what we have learned from different subjects is something that can benefit our own personal growth. Like by learning mathematics, we learn how to do problem solving that can be applied everywhere. By learning biology and arts, we are fundamentally learning the gesture of care. So that's all the transdisciplinary and also fluid personalities and traits of human beings. And we believe that it's the traits that define us and makes us a better human being.
Thank you. I'll take two more questions. Barbara first.
Thank you. It's rather an exclamation of happiness than a question. I was so moved by all your statements, and I think there is no room for competition anymore. Competition in the old sense is really old school. Collaboration is the new competition. This is what will make you stand out, and what will make you be excellent, because we can be so much more as mankind if we collaborate and not fight against each other. And I think this will be the wings on which this university can really fly. I'm very happy and looking forward to being with you.
Maybe Lucas, unless you want to reply on. Anyone? Vanessa?
I just wanted to, before we take our next question maybe, ask all those who are not sitting on the stage. We have always tried to have a very inclusive conversation space at the Founding Lab up to here, and I think this would be a very good space to continue this. So I would specifically also invite the students to contribute, especially those that we haven't heard, something that they would like to add, something that we maybe haven't heard yet. And I do know that you have done a fantastic job in representing all the voices, but there are so many more that we actually haven't heard. So I'm just passing the mic there.
Okay, so, hello. Let me just take out my nervousness first. It's very sudden. Yeah, there was one point that I maybe could add, but it has been told in different ways. Different narratives have been built around it. I think at the end of the day, we need to also ask questions that are not only economically valuable, but also valuable to us as humans, as in terms of our evolution. Have we finished our evolution with the evolution of a separate thumb? Is that all we are as evolutionary beings? Do we have further to evolve? And where are we going? This does not give us economic benefit. This does not probably make richer people richer, but these kinds of questions will definitely make better humans. And in terms of excellence, I think I would value human excellence more than any other kind of certificate or a kind of prize of excellence. So, yeah, still nervous, but these are pretty much my points.
Thank you. Okay, well then, Lucas.
So through some magical coincidence, I have two microphones, but I will only use one. I like that you talked about the community aspect. I think we should think about the city, Lind. The new university is going to be part of a city that has existed for a long time. And I was wondering what's your experience? Do people know about this university when you talk with them and try to use your Sodexo vouchers? What's your impression of what role can this university play within this existing ecosystem?
Anyone who wants to share about their experience in Linz, unless we need to make back on the stage. Priyanka, no experience in the city? Well then, but we need the mic. Thanks.
Yeah, we did have experience, especially in the tram. I would like to sadly report that most of the students that had some remarkable interactions were students of color that were singled out. I am not white, I'm Brazilian, I'm mixed Brazilian, but I pass more easily. But some students that don't, they were singled out with their name cards, with their bags. Yeah, people talked about it. We had the experience of people in the tram saying this university should not exist, that kind of thing. These things were discussed in our spaces as well. We understand, we heard from people in the team that have more experience with Linz that it's an Austrian thing, apparently. I don't know, I'm just reporting what someone else said, that it takes a while, but people eventually come to realize the value and how good it can be. And I believe that one thing that I've noticed is that everyone in the team is very passionate about Linz. Not only the ones who were born and raised here, but yeah, the ones who have made the city their home. So I understand that it's a matter of time, because there is a real interest in showing the city that this project is also about them.
Thank you.
Just adding to that, I think community engagement is going to be a very vital part about this. And I think there are multiple ways to do so. Firstly, I think the students over here are definitely, like the youngsters are definitely going to benefit from this interaction. Ars Electronica has been doing a wonderful job getting the world into LINS, and I guess it's about taking that forward and seeing how it can integrate more. I also think that it's coming, I guess, from my own place back in India. We have a lot of people who don't fit into the conventional systems of education, and but still have a lot to offer, be it through traditional ecological knowledge or other forms of knowledge and folklore, for example, or like different ways of being. And I think this is a university that needs to be able to incorporate that. And also, I guess it's really, somebody brought this up earlier, but it's very important to note that learning is not just for the youth. I think this university needs to believe in lifelong learning. And I think that is a way that the people of LINS, especially the older generations in LINS, can deeply engage with, both while teaching as well as learning from this university.
Thank you. And as we have been reminded that students and professors need food and rest, we have one more question for Stefanie, if she wants to finalize this, and then one last round. Stefanie?
Okay, I happen to have a mic.
Darsha, quick, you have the mic? Okay.
Thank you very much for all these great ideas and suggestions. What about the community of the other universities? I mean, we are not existing in an isolated place. So there are 22 other universities, lots of Fachhochschule, so applied colleges and other learning institutions around. What do you think, how should the cooperation or the interaction be with these organizations?
Thank you. I think with the other universities, and we have been reflecting a lot on our current institutions, is that for me personally from Australia, my university is separated by buildings. So the art school is separate to this, where the science is done. So there's no form of collaboration. There's no way to interact with these students. We're the weird art students wearing weird clothes and going and telling them our big ideas. There's nothing there to break down the barriers. So a shared space between all disciplines or art studios or places to collaborate, to meet, or project-based would really allow us to start collaborations. As I said, I really wanted to meet a scientist while I was here, and that has happened, but it is not something I've been able to do in Australia to collaborate with. So,
thank you.
So before we leave you all, I think we're heading there. I just wanted to also mention that in the conference group, we have other people also who were greatly a part of this, be it Kevin in terms of the video he made, or Deepti in terms of all her ideologies of care and peacefulness that she brings in terms of her general energy, as well as Ariana for helping with the design, and as well as Sutanuka and other like Youngjun, who are going to be talking about, and Benedict, who are going to be talking in the next section about the different things that we did in the different groups, and you will learn more about that. And most importantly, I'd like to thank Luciano and Anna for being wonderful organizers. Yeah. They've been really wonderful, and they've really bared with a lot with us, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome everyone to today's afternoon session of the Founding Lab program. Then during the Education Day, I have the honors of introducing our stage hosts for the whole afternoon session. They were flying in from the University of Lancaster, and we're super grateful to have you here. They're working on digital sciences, social sciences, and also transparent concepts that go beyond even university environments. They have an incredible background, not only in their own research, but also for stage facilitation of different kinds. And I've heard from many different sides, actually, that also their university courses are of a very special twist in a way. So we're super happy to have them here today. They're very experienced in also leading conversations into depth. And this is where we want to invite every one of you today. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Lauren, for being here. And I will officially hand over the word to you right now.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Anna. That was so kind and just so characteristic of the care and inclusionary spirit that has just marked every minute of today. And Lauren and I kind of joining you. It's not about us this afternoon. We're continuing the opportunity to provide a platform and a stage for the 75 students. I talked to someone at lunch saying, you're going to have to get a tattoo or something, the 75 that kind of bond you forever. But this, yeah, exactly. Someone's designing it already, I can see. I'm nervous now that I might have to get one. So the 75 students that just over these 2 weeks have been remarkable, absolutely extraordinary in that vision, that clarity, and the generosity of spirit that you showed in taking us through your vision as well. We want to just not only bottle that and just take it around the world, those values, but we want to continue that spirit this afternoon. You as a group, you as a community, you as collaborators with that heart and that care and that imagination and that acceptance of difference, you're not alone. This isn't all on you. You're part of a network of other communities. It's a bit like the multiverse. There are some other universes out there where there are other groups of people right now really wrestling with the same set of questions around, yes, the future of university curricula and student progress and learning resource and quality management and curriculum design and all of those things that we need to think about when putting together the estate and systems and processes and cultures and personnel of an organization as complex as a university. Yes, there are conversations about those new models. And yes, there are conversations that are going on around digital culture and that intersection between the sciences and the arts, between the humanities and digital media, and how we might erase some of those old, orthodox, traditional disciplinary boundaries, and a new world of post-disciplinary thinking and working could emerge. There are conversations around that. But actually, there's even more at stake here. This meeting, you are a boundary object actually to much higher stakes. This is about the future of how we collaborate on this planet in a non-competitive, equitable, non-extracting, magical, fantastical, celestial way. But again, we don't want this to feel as if it's all on you. You've worked so hard. We know your energy levels are quite low at the moment. So we want to reassure you, we've got your back. And actually one of the brilliant things that's going to come from this event is not only those allies that you have inside IDSA and Ars Electronica who are going to be making that case and opening those doors for us to rush through, but actually you've got other allies across Europe and across the world who want to carry on this conversation. So it's in that spirit that we come to today. We're from another university. We're from the University of Leicester, right bang in the middle of the UK. And 9 months ago, we launched a brand new institute. We launched an Institute for Digital Culture. And we leverage transdisciplinary research to help cultural organizations around the world adapt to a digital age. And we do that by doing purposeful work really purposeful work that responds to points of need. So Lauren and I spend an awful lot of our time having very similar conversations to you. So it's been energizing and inspiring and catalytic for us to be part of these conversations. So I think the first thing and final bit of this introduction is to say thank you for having us, and thank you for making us so welcome in your community. Lauren, we're going to be having a very fluid conversation. It's a very equitable conversation this afternoon. But perhaps to help us kind of tune into the kind of reflectiveness and openness, we should think about the future.
Definitely. And so to do that, and we want to make sure that we recognize that everybody, comes into this conversation in different ways. We have put all of the prompts and everything that we're going to go through on a Google document, so we can put that up on the slide. And you can access it and follow along as we're going through today's discussion. So first off, we've heard a lot about these different futures. You've thought a lot about the visions you want this university to be. And we really like to start these types of conversations with, let's project ourselves 10 years into the future. Let's be in 2033. I want you to think about who you are in 2033. How has this university or this experience, how has it stayed with you? What skills have you learned? What relationships have you cultivated? Where are you 10 years from now? What have you done with your life, with your community? Where do you exist? And we just want you to take just a minute and think about what that future looks like for you. So with this future self in mind, we're going to be asking you a couple of questions around skills, around the type of disciplines, around the type of technologies that are needed for this university to not just survive, but thrive. How does it get created? How does it live? How does it live in its students and its educators, in the people that are associated with the community itself? So we'll start with the how. This is a fishbowl conversation. And I know that if you've been through a fishbowl conversation before, the setup looks a bit different. Normally you have an inner circle and an outer circle. So we're going to pretend this is our inner circle. We are having an intimate conversation. We're going to be talking amongst ourselves. Whoever is up here has the mic, has the power, okay? And we want this to be a hive of activity. So once you have said or asked your question or commented on somebody else's or given your perspective, we ask you to leave that seat open, move to the audience, move to the outer circle, and leave space for somebody else to join. So don't wait for us to prompt you to come up. You can come up at any time. But we're looking for multiple perspectives, multiple ways in which to answer the questions around skills, technologies, and disciplines. Now, we're holding this as a very safe space, and space or safety means something different to every single person. We are following our code of conduct for the entire conference, but we're really kind of zeroing in on respecting each other's opinions and perspectives. Whatever is shared, we do not attack personalities. We talk about the ideas, we talk about the perspectives, and we think about how might we be challenged? How might we live in an uncomfortable space as we think about these multiple futures? So we'll have about 15 or so minutes for each topic. We're gonna kind of go with the flow. So if there's a topic that really gravitates, really resonates with you and grabs your attention, and it's taking, the space, we're gonna hold that space. But this is your time, your space to come up and join us for the conversation. Ross, do you have anything to add?
No, so I say no, and now I'm going to add something. What's going on there? No, Lauren, so let me talk. Start to think about, those of you that are already in the document behind the QR code, you can see the sort of questions that are coming up. An incredible array. You were really super smart and very, very open in the way that you shared the microphone this morning. And we met so many of the 75, so many of the students we've heard of. Maybe you're somebody who is speaking later on. That's okay, do come up for this part of the conversation. Or maybe you're somebody who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and maybe this is the moment to have that moment of courage as well. As we keep saying, this is not a judging space. You've got your guys around you. This is your chance to contribute and have your voice heard, and for you to be seen, in this space as we hold it together. Lauren, should we get into the first round?
Yes, let's do that. So we heard a lot this morning about lifelong learning, about the desire to have and build and cultivate different types of skills, and how do we keep those skills, evolve those skills, cultivate new skills as we move into the future. So we want to invite people up to start. We're actually going to start with a third question. Looking 10 to 20 years out, what challenges will graduates face that we need to help them prepare for now? So we heard a lot about your vision this morning, both from the fellows' perspective, the students' perspective, educators. Now we want to bring you up and we want to ask you specifics. What are those challenges, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that we need to be able to address now as we're creating this new university environment? So we've got some mics up here. It's a friendly, hospitable place. I won't bite. Nobody else will bite. If anybody wants to come up and join us and help us answer these questions, or if there's another question around skills that you just felt that we needed to delve deeper into this morning, you are welcome to come up.
Come on, who'd like to have a go? It's a moment. I might turn to some of the fantastic.
Please, come on up.
We're not quite in the clappy moment yet, but there is a certain amount of relief. Any of the students like to come up? We're just going to start to have a gentle conversation with Lauren. If not, we may just ask some of our fellows to come as well. Would you like to come up?
Yeah, of course.
Fantastic. You know those magicians who start to have people they're plucking out of the audience, and you're never quite sure if they're a stooge or there's someone who's part of it. I feel like one of those. Is this your watch? Any of the students that would like to contribute, who'd like to come forward? Come on, there's scissors, paper, stone happening at the back of the room now to kind of. Nathan, do you like to come up?
Come on. And we'll share the mics, and feel free. This is a hive of activity, so don't hesitate to come up.
Maybe we start.
All right?
Yeah.
So is there, do you want to react to the third question, or is there another question that you really feel that, please go for it.
I have an urgent question. We have been talking a lot about the aspect that interdisciplinary teaching and research would probably be one of the core ingredients of the new institution, but that's a real ambivalent from a skills point of view. The question is, how can we teach interdisciplinary skills by not sacrificing the idea that at university level you should also, dive a little bit deeper. So that's a thrilling question for me, and I've actually no answer. So I'm really interested in your ideas.
So I'm wondering if those on stage, how would you like to react to that?
I have maybe two suggestions. The first is that the way to learn interdisciplinary skills is to work in teams, because there's skills like planning and organizing and interacting with different people, and that you can only really learn by doing. So I think working in teams across disciplines is one way to learn interdisciplinary skills. And I think for myself, it's been interesting because I had no idea really what this was going to be when I applied. And it's been interesting to have creative space and to have that ability that I could go and learn something new. I never thought I would ever really manage to go and learn things about artificial intelligence or machine learning. And I ended up in the artificial intelligence group, and it was a bit of a surprise. But actually, that accessibility of learning, the way that walls can be broken down and spaces can be creative and collaborative, means that there's an incentive and a freedom for people who wouldn't move out of their specialism to actually explore that. And I think it's from there that you get a lot of the most creative ideas, from that cross-disciplinary thinking. But I do agree that it's important for people to dive deep into things.
Does that require some type of safety or some type of guardrails, that type of the building of community before that collaboration can occur? So when you're working with a team, I'm curious, like, what did you need to have in place, that scaffolding that you needed to have in place to feel like you could learn and really work with these different people?
I think it's really important to feel like you have a perspective that's worthwhile, because it would have been really easy for me to feel completely out of my depth here, because I've never had any particular coding training or arts training. I mean, I play the trombone, which, it's not the most artistic of instruments, really. You don't get a maestro trombone player very often. But maybe it'll be me. The point is that would have been very easy to feel out like completely lost. But actually, if you feel valid in your own presence, like teamwork, the first point of teamwork is working with yourself. Mm-hmm. And if you feel secure, if you manage to be secure and welcome in that sense, that's a really important foundation, I think, for that kind of expansion.
Excellent.
So I totally share that, but what I think is even more important for the future is that the times are changing so quickly. So in the past times we had like circles of economy floating to depressions with 5-10 year circles, and now it's starting to be so quick, so people have to adapt to societal changes in a very different manner. So there is Corona coming up, and then everything also in education in terms of collaboration changes within 1 second. So I think what we really need to tell those people and to bring them is to be flexible together and not be separated. I think that's really what I hope that we manage to do so, because I think otherwise we will be lost, because everybody's doing its own, let's say, shit, and we will not get better from that. So I hope at least that we will find a way to really hope and broaden up the mind of the people for flexicurity.
Would you like to add something? Yes.
I think it's all about failure. I think we're all scared of failure and being vulnerable and accepting that we all fail from time to time. And no one remembers the bad, terrible artworks that I've made, but they remember the good works that I've made. So I think this way of being flexible and learning to test and drive new things, collaborate, that may fail, that's okay, and keep going. Because I think to adapt to this rapid changing world, things aren't going to work, and we have to be okay with that.
I think failure is the best way to say. So I'm a chemist, and we have a lot of publications for things that worked out. But it's impossible to publish any data which failed, because you cannot publish in high-ranked journals, and then you do not get any good index, and you will never be a good PhD, postdoc, whatever. So if there would be a journal of unpublishable data with all the failed experiments, it would really definitely broaden up all those experiments and save so much time. Everybody's doing the same things again. And I think that not only applies to chemistry, but to all of the visions. So maybe we can make a safe space for failed experiments, and then really maybe look from another perspective on those, and then keep growing.
Yeah, it's very, the ways in which we are coming into maybe this new university environment, we need to realize the baggage or the different perspectives we have in the current environments. And if we are reinforcing in the current environments, reinforcing that performance, that excellence that you talked about this morning, what could we do to flip that? How do we create a new future, a new reality that allows for that space? That's great, that's brilliant. When you came up, did you want to address a question or different?
I just want to challenge the answer.
Okay, challenge away.
I sympathize with your view, and I think this, on a procedural level, it's very true what you're saying. But I have very trivial problems. For me, I'm a trained computer scientist, and in my, let's say at that time nowadays it would be called bachelor's degree. I had to study 50% of my time math. And then there was the other 50%, more or less, were computer science and some side issues. Now, if I want to be an expert in a second field like social sciences at the same time, I have to sacrifice something. So either I'm, and the danger being a very superficial expert in all these fields. And that is not what my vision from a university level is. So I'm just don't see the how to meet the ends.
Is part of that skill development maybe recognizing where you need to find the bridge, or you need to find an interpreter, you need to find the scientist, you need to, right? It's not necessarily being the expert in that field, but what questions, what skills can you help develop the relationship or develop the bridge? Which I see you nodding, please.
Yes. We could make a great app together. You're a computer scientist, I'm an artist. We could make something amazing.
Yeah,
we could collaborate.
that would be great.
This is how it works. We break those barriers down and we create something.
Yeah, but then we are two disciplinary persons working together.
Yes.
We are not one interdisciplinary person. That's a different aspect. So maybe that's the way we do it. We don't talk about interdisciplinary persons. We're only talking about interdisciplinary teams. Yeah, that could be could work out. But then we need to train also again our students to become in some way disciplinary students, because otherwise you don't get disciplinary teams.
Yeah, please. Okay.
let
We'd
me
like
just-
to sacrifice their...
No. Okay.
Sit down, please. You're part of the conversation.
Okay. I didn't want to come again, but because my field is computational social science, which is exactly what you mentioned. But I'm not originally neither a computer scientist nor a social scientist. I'm an architect. So yeah, doing this kind of transition was a lot of work, and it required years of study for me to actually get for an advisor to want to take me in, so that I could show him that I had done a lot of work to be reasonably decent at this. And I had done no coding in my life until I actually joined KAIS, which was a year ago. So I can do most of my coding nowadays, my analysis, which I learned mostly by myself with the support of my fellow lab mates. But there's a lot of things that I cannot do, and for that I can count on the help of people that are better than me. So I am sacrificing. I will not be a computer scientist, but I know just enough to talk to the computer scientists that I work with, so that I know what they're doing, and they will go and do the things that I don't know how to do. So I think the point of the digital sciences is not that I will be a perfect computer scientist and social scientist, but that we need each other to work together, but we need to understand what the other is doing. That's more of the point. It's not something that you can do individually like you could do with the other, with the more traditional, let's put like this, fields.
Yeah, I think it's more like a mixture of interdisciplinary and post-disciplinary. I think that's what I heard in the morning. It really describes it well, because you have the people really deeply into something, and then you have bridging people from different disciplines. But I'm totally with you. They have to speak the same language, otherwise it will be impossible for them to collaborate.
That common
and so
ground,
I think that's one of our goals we have to do. We have to tell them how to talk to each other and translate their languages somehow.
Oh, you want to?
No,
go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think. So I used to date an engineer. And I come from like humanities, art, architecture in Brazil is a very humanities and art centered school. And I used to date an engineer, programmer, and we really liked each other, but we could not, even if we wanted to be together, we could not make the effort to understand each other's side. The problem, that was a really, 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 really important point for me to think about why interdisciplinarity fails. Because we kind of really wanted to make things work, but we were really stuck in our worldview and most importantly, the priorities of our field. And that is one of the things, like what is the reason why each of these fields exist? When you are talking to a different field, you cannot prioritize your own worldview and your own priorities. So I don't think it's so much about translating, but compromising on what's important.
And there's a lot of partnerships that work. Like when I read a computational social science paper, I know if the main author is a social scientist or a computer scientist. But usually, even if the main author is from a field or the other, you're going to have like people collaborating, yes. But it's about negotiating these priorities. Like what is the most important thing in a paper about social sciences? It cannot be the same in the computational social science paper, for example.
We're actually gonna, okay.
Just one more thing to add. I think the problem when you talk about papers is also where to publish those data.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important things.
So we just went through, if you come on stage. No. It belongs to all of us here. We're holding this space. Come on up.
So maybe it's not the right topic because it's about skills, but it is about skills because I just want to say maybe it's not about the skills, it's not about the how we do something. But now that we go beyond this stage of where everyone has to be perfect in one field and is afraid to fail, maybe it's about even more the why we do something. And so that's why, and this lovely lady over here who just left because of me, when she told her story that you found your scientist, and you found her because you talked about the why. You wanted to heal people, what I understood. It's about medicine and health. And so that's how you found each other. And now you figure out how to do it. That's not, that's not rocket science, how to do stuff. I mean, it is because other people train 20 years to be the perfect rocket scientist. But you can find this person. You have this meta level of vision. You want to reach this goal and you will find your way. And this is the new skill, I think, to find the right people. So what are the skills you need to find the right people? How you can make the connection, the communication, and then how to stay together, because you need other power you need other skills to get into power, but very different skills to stay in power and to have the stamina to go through this and to keep the team together. And I have a very big startup background as well, so it's like a band. You have to hold the band together and you have to go through thick and thin and realize not everyone can do everything. So I think maybe it's really about the why and the purpose.
That's a great way to end this particular section. I really appreciate. Let's. Yeah. Oh, you want to
add something on this topic?
Sure, go for it.
Sorry.
Final closing thought on this topic?
I just put the same question on ChatGPT. I'm sorry, I just put it on because I was just using the technology just to have an idea. So it came out with multiple solutions, that 15 or 20, that it comes out with bullet points. But what I think the universities right now are missing, because we have to identify the challenges and then provide solution for. Right now, especially in third world countries, what they are missing is they don't prepare students for life. And life hits them very hard. So there is a part of the life which is failure, which can be during your, I would say after 10, 20 years, during your job, in your professional life, or maybe in your personal life. But generally, how to deal with the failure or maybe deal with setbacks, universities do not prepare you for this. And generally, people learn them by themselves. And for some people, it might be a good learning journey, but for some people, it becomes very hard. And they do, I would say, fall into the pits of maybe depression or something else. And it becomes very difficult for them to put together their life again and then. So what I would want that the future university should have a very strong, I would say, alumni network sort of thing, or maybe connection to that university, so that the students can have some sort of, I would say, belonging to, where they can go back and maybe learn a new skill. So if there is a new technology and the kind of work I was doing become redundant, it doesn't matter. I can go back to my place, learn a new skill, maybe in 6 months, a short course, maybe a 2-year degree, and then come back and I'm prepared for the That's the kind of thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to add to this. I think like the culture of failure has to change. In my history and past, it was really like not allowed to fail. But now it seems, it's strange that it still seems to be like that. It's very sad because failure, you just have to reinterpret the term. Without failure, we would never have a happy accident. We would have not so many great things. There is no right and wrong anyway. It's just in our interpretation. So we really have to rethink what is our reality and what is black and white, and is there even black and white? And so I think we need a much more deeper thought process and reinterpretation process of the whole thing, and start to understand that failure also is good.
If I had one sentence. Sorry.
This is a hot topic. We're going to keep going. Go for it.
I just have one thing to add, which is that you can succeed on everything you wanted to succeed on, but it can still be a failure if you succeed by not taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's a failure that we don't pay enough attention to. So that's important.
Thank you so much. This was a great way to kick off this conversation. So, yes. It's vulnerable to get up on a stage. So we talked a lot this morning about the infrastructure. We talked a lot about physically being in community with one another and the power of that. But now we're going to talk about maybe some of the technologies, the scaffolding that keeps those connections moving or that helps us create new connections. So Ross, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we've just touched upon questions around new technologies. There's a very practical side of building a new university. We will have that credo, those values and those principles. We'll interrogate the new pedagogies. We will demolish and bring down disciplinary kind of structures and silos between academic subjects if that's what's needed. We will create a new culture of kind of support and respect and collaboration and community. But we've got to deliver it. People have to show up. They have to be supported. There has to be an infrastructure. So help us now. Those of you that particularly are thinking about technologies and those of you that are using technologies in your creative work in the summer school, let's think about ed tech. Let's think about that first question. What are the technologies that are going to distinguish this new university? And let's remind ourselves, this is about a new university that will be about digital media, but it will also use digital media as well. It will be a distinguishing characteristic of its pedagogy and its teaching and learning will be its use of technology. So it's about technology. It is equipping us to use technology, but technology is also the space, the platform, the medium through which this learning and teaching takes place. So please, who'd like to kind of come forward? Would you like to? He's picking people out of the audience. Yeah, please. Yeah. Who else would like to kind of help us think now about some of those education platforms that maybe? And I'm reluctant to start pulling people out of the crowd, but please, is it some of the collaborative spaces? Is it those Miro boards and those other extraordinary mighty network spaces that you've been using?
Or if you have a bad experience with one of those, you can definitely talk about that as well.
Yeah. By the way, who's already managed to get the URL for the Journal of Unpublishable Data? Can someone get onto that now? Because that was a genius idea. We need to have the business model up and running by the end of this session. Okay. So we can start. Please. Say again?
No, I was just saying who's in the paper.
It's all in there. Please take a seat. So we'll start by starting to. Are you happy to?
Sure.
So help us. The technologies that are going to help these new models of interaction.
Sure. First of all, just a question, just show of hands. Does anyone hate Miro boards other than me? It's so hate Miro boards. They're these sort of shared space, like a big, sort of like like working on a whiteboard, but with Miro. Yeah. Yeah, I hate it because. My spelling's terrible, and I always feel like I'm making a mistake, and I don't know how many people are watching me, make the mistake, or, sort of a weird feeling. Anyway, but that's just an aside. I saw lots of hands, so thanks for that. Each to their own. It's okay. Yeah, I'm not complaining either. I'm happy to use the Miro board, but I just wanted to check. But, one thing that I've been thinking about lately is just how conversational AI would have really helped me when I was at university I did communications media degree, so really, and very in a uni where they really weren't happy to share space with the computer science department.
Mm-hmm.
But I did get to take a couple of computer science subjects, which were good, and I sort of worked my way through, and would have, pretty bad marks, but got through, but wouldn't have been able to get that far if it hadn't been for a bunch of all Indian guys actually that lived in the Unix lab in the underground lab that was open 24 hours. They didn't live there, but they just hung out there heaps, and they were super helpful. Just looking over my shoulder, pointing out syntax mistakes and stuff like that. And it just occurred to me one day that if I'd gone to uni during COVID and had to do that from home, which was a completely doable thing, working in a terminal, I wouldn't have passed those subjects at all. And so it sort of made me think, with these conversational AIs that are so good at, making suggestions and talking and stuff, I'm sure people are already working on it, but I wonder, if they might be wonderful sort of personalised learning tools, like a friend that can pick up your mistakes as you're making them and really accelerate the speed at which people can learn.
There are many universities that are spending hundreds of thousands of pounds a year on the licenses for their virtual learning environments that enable them to use a very 20th century factory, flat file, database, bookshelf approach to learning. And it's as if, overnight, that's crumbling down, and it will be new tools, people generating answers on the fly by a tool on their phone that will allow us to have different conversations. Where are we going with this conversation?
Yeah. I'm here, back again. It's just because my most recent startup, they built holodecks. And a holodeck is a shared environment, a shared virtual environment where you physically are in the space with a lot of other people. And of course, education is, for me, the most important use case of that. So I think a holodeck can really be great if for history, for physics, for psychology classes, language. Maybe you can be in Paris without being in Paris with a lot of other people, and it feels real, more real than just on a flat screen. And although I'm in the VR field for such a long time, I'm maybe the most the biggest critic of it because I am in it. But for education, I think in terms of, because you need experience. Some subjects are best learned through experience. And on the holodeck, you can really do that. So maybe we can see more of those. Every empty gym in any school can be turned into a holodeck very cheaply. And then children, I really think more about a kid's education more than maybe university level would be it would be transformed completely.
Every good conversation needs a contrarian, so I think sometimes I'm good at playing that. I like to think of myself as a digital minimalist. I'm usually very late on the, of people adopting new technologies. I just see what it does to other people, and when I think, okay, that might be useful, then I jump on that train as well. And I think in education, we should really be careful in adopting everything just because it comes along and it might sound exciting. And I think we should do that especially with a clear idea of what we know works in education. Yes. I think personal conversation, personal interaction is the most important thing ever. When I look back at my time in secondary school as an undergraduate, the things that I remember are conversations I had, lectures I attended because there was a performance, something happened, someone challenged me. I never remember any Zoom calls. So I think we should do whatever we can to put center stage those conversations that require technology, because there's lights, there's water in the background, there's places, but we have that. That's not new fancy technology. I think we need to make sure to put the infrastructure in place to have conversations between people working.
Help me on that. Absolutely, it deserves that. And please, anyone in the room that wants to just tag team me or someone on the, please come up.
Come on up.
Yeah, come and join the conversation. Oh, thank you so much. Because we need to dig into this, because there's, I'm filling whilst you come to take the stage. We need to dig into these questions around education technology, because on the one hand, it enables, I'm a visually impaired person. I would not be sitting here today. I wouldn't have my job if it wasn't for an awful lot of technology, some very practical technology that I rely upon, but also the fact that you can see it, other people can't. I get to do that. So I cannot see without technology to help me, and so that enables me to participate in the academy. So how do we, on the one hand, notice that digital media has enabled people to contribute and to join the community, but on the other hand, it extracts resource and energy, it has a cost, there are imbalances in terms of who has access to that technology, it puts mediating films and screens in the way, there's a sort of, okay, that's quite a binary debate, but there's a debate that goes on there. So I'm going to open the question up a little bit more to these questions around accessibility as well. But hello, good to see you here, and welcome. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of thoughts. Maybe because I brought one of the youngest attendants of this event, and also what you said is maybe one question to think about is when do we start introducing these technologies? Maybe it's earlier than university time so that we have time to discover ourselves within those technologies. Like also what you said about Mirrorboard, I work remotely with an American company, and I discover I'm a different person online. I'm a different person, I have a different personality, different way of organizing myself than in a room. And that's because I only did that when I was way older. I discovered to be in a classroom with other kids when I was in my forming ages of being a teenager. So maybe this discussion of what technology to use has to start way earlier than university age. Awesome.
How does a new university plan for that? How do you build the infrastructure for the 8-year-olds now that are going to be entering a university in a decade's time? How do we understand what the classroom, do we even need classrooms? What that teaching environment needs to be for a generation time? Bearing in mind, breaking ground, convincing government to give resource. How do we visualize the educational technology for a new university when the futures are so complex?
I mean, I'd suggest that, with the discussion we were just having, personal versus, machine-aided learning, it's not an either-or discussion. You sort of pick the eyes out of it, move deftly, pay attention to how things are working, how different things work for different people, and try to just find a way that works the best for each student to help them learn in the most interesting way and in a quick way too. I mean, I think the point of small children is really interesting. I've got a 6-year-old at the moment who hasn't really discovered real computer games yet, so she thinks the math games and the spelling games that she plays are computer games, and she loves them. I can only imagine how much better these games, because they got so much better since I was a kid. I grew up in the 80s, and there were games then, and look, they've got a lot better, but they've got a long way to go too. And in answer to your question of, how do you plan for something that's so far away? I think, you take big guesses and you sort of move carefully and slowly through that and be prepared to challenge your assumptions, iterate and move forward in an organic way, keeping your options open so that and being prepared to admit that decisions made a couple of years ago maybe aren't the best decision for now, and alter course and, just pay attention. That'd be my avoiding the question answer.
No, because it's the new flexibility and adaptability that we heard writ large in the presentations this morning, the extraordinary presentations this morning. We saw, there was a fluidity, there was something aqueous about, working and thinking and that criticality and how people encounter each other. And it may be that we're talking about the future of work as well, that the organization, the operational organization of this new institution needs to be step change different as well. Hi, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you. No, I just wanted to basically take a little bit a step back in the underlying assumption of what we think technology is in this discussion. Because we always have this assumption that we talk about a solution, about a platform that enables us to do certain things. But in my experience, I just like to mess around with things without knowing exactly how I'm going to use it. And when you pulled out your looking glass and the different settings on your on your iPad, I'm sure you didn't look up the best way, a kind of a prescriptive mode of how these technologies might help you. You would also experiment and play around with it. Yeah. And I think this idea of looking at technology not always as a solution, but as a probe, as something that lets you intervene and get a response and find something out is really important. And yeah, I mean, I think this whole idea of the platform has changed in its meaning historically. You know, in the 70s, you would say, there's a famous article that Olivetti being a platform company, because it consisted of a lot of parts that didn't fit together and that were kind of unfinished partial solutions. But now there's this assumption that a platform is something that just lets you do everything and like everything fits together. But I think this moment of bricolage, where you're just putting together stuff and experimenting without really saying, okay, I need this in order to do that, and I need this in order to solve this problem. Because, I mean, obviously, very often technology is a solution to things, but it's not always the solution that we thought it would be in the beginning. So there was always a kind of a serendipity that played a role.
We think about the primary school teacher in her classroom where she has Lego, she has plasticine, she has crayons, she has a garden outside, she has a window, she may have a screen, she has pencils, she has bricks, she has a library of books, a pile of books. And that experienced, brilliant teacher, she improvises creatively every day with that bricolage. That's her ed tech. And then for some reason, we go into tertiary education and suddenly we think there is this £400,000 a year single solution that is the answer to all your questions. And that moment of bricolage and creativity and that palette of colors that the teacher can paint with every day, it goes, or it risks going. Hi, welcome to the fishbowl.
I just have to, parentheses, I haven't slept in like 36 hours, so my level of eloquence is really low right now, therefore my hesitance of coming up on this stage. But this is a theme that is close to heart. As the introduction said, I did work with children, and my interest was on playgrounds, and because I see play as learning for children, and for not only for children, but for all of us. And just thinking about right here, right now, like I wonder how different would it have been for the students here to have this learning experience had it been experienced online on a platform, right? Like I think co-location is really important in that sense. But I think that co-location obviously is happening digitally too, but like the tangibility and the chance for serendipitous encounters, for bricolage, for learning, play happens as an interaction between spaces, places, objects, and people, right? And like you have to have those three parameters in order for play to happen. That said, I do think that there is a lot of technological innovations that might allow for tangible interfaces, to remember Hiroshi, to embed intelligence in these objects and to be able to network them beyond it living in one space. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities, but I think that just limiting it to digital rather than tangible is maybe something that I would push against.
I think we have. Right?
Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, careful.
Okay. Are you okay?
Yeah, okay.
Hi, welcome to the fishbowl.
Thank you.
What are you thinking about EdTech, or maybe you want to go in another direction?
All right. My name is Orina Dorothy. I come from Nairobi, Kenya. And I think one thing that is really close to my heart is experimentation. Someone mentioned, one of the fellows, hello, colorful t-shirt. He said that one of the goals for this university would have us being unapologetically experimental. And for me, coming from a country that has averagely limited resources, I've experienced first-hand shunning of experimental projects because of funding, yeah? And a lot of people are not very willing to fund projects that are not already proven to work or are not already in the market. And so I think one of the technologies that will really help with this is simulation technologies, whether it's to be experienced by a PC or by immersive technology such as virtual reality learning or augmented reality learning. It will create a platform for a lot more experimentation in the case where resources are limiting and people won't be allowed to actually build physical prototypes of the very creative projects that they have in mind. So I think simulation will really work well. And probably one more thing that would add to that is more accurate models for simulation, because some of these things, they are there, they exist, but are not to a level of accuracy that would actually create a very good prototype. So integrating AI into this and making it to a level of accuracy that would allow proper experimentation before people get to build their physical prototypes.
And I'm being a little bit cheeky here because I'm now going to build a bridge to our next conversation, which is about disciplines. But which part of that amazing landscape, let's call them arts and sciences now, but we might get rid of that definition. Which subjects benefit from simulation technologies? Is it the engineers? Is it the chemists? Is it the physicists? Is it those working in virology? But is it the literature student? Is it the historian? Who can benefit from simulation technologies?
I think it will mostly be the scientific and engineering students, but I think with a simulation environment, you can really bring in the concept of an artist because it can be simulated in a digital environment. So it creates a platform where people can collaborate in a digital environment to actually showcase a prototype that will be built in a physical environment.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some exciting opportunities there, isn't there? That the idea of an art object or of us conserving a particular artwork and us thinking about its digital twin and playing with that artwork, what it was 200 years ago, but what state it might be in 200 years' time. But the historian starting to play with the same simulation technology as well, to see what that might do with those pieces of evidence and to understand how arguments might be generated and might develop as well, which is extraordinary. Yeah. Any final thoughts before we start thinking more about discipline? Play is going to be important. You think
play is going to be important, and I just think that sometimes learning for me happens retroactively. Like, it's not that I set out to learn something, it's like that I reflect on what I learn. You know what I mean? So it's not like I'm out there to learn something. Sometimes that happens, but usually I look back to what I learned, and it's much more than what I set out to learn at the beginning. So how does learning actually happen and what contributes to that? It's, I think, a question that it's important to ask, what is learning and how do you learn to learn?
And many of us work so hard to make sure that university authorities and those with their hands-on funds don't see play and playfulness as in some way a secondary type of investigation or learning. We know it can be the key to making that creative, inventive step. Yeah. Is by letting yourself go and declining the usual categories.
Yeah, and I mean, that's with playing, but even formal learning, right? Whatever formal learning setting happens too, I still feel that learning happens a lot retroactively, you learn so much more from anything than what you set out to learn, whether it's playful learning or not. I mean, play is a completely different thing, but yeah, I think that play sadly has usually been seen as a domain for children, so it's always taken as a childish thing to do. Which is okay. We just need another word maybe, but yeah.
We do, but it can be associated with rigorous, significant, original, incisive, smart and important research and investigation and criticality as well. These are not too different, it's not optional, these aren't mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Hi again. Oh, that's loud, sorry. I just wanted to add, I think for me it would be really important when we are talking about technology and stuff, it always comes about funding. And usually I know that from my university where I grew up, so everybody has his own equipment, his own laboratory, his own separate devices which are used only to a very little extent. And they are really expensive and costly, so I think it's a must to share those, to have full equipment in one shared laboratory where everybody can access it and book their time frames without having to fund them as a FFG, Horizon, whatever project. So I think that's a must for me to allow there some let's say basic fundamental technologies to be available for all of those people there. I mean, there is great students having topics which are not so attractive to fundings compared to others, and they're always then on the bad side because they will never afford that.
In museums and galleries, there are wonderful things called tinkering spaces, where visitors can come in and there's a workshop of tools and we say, where do you want to go? And we don't do that with our students. We don't say, where do you want to explore? How are we going to frame this learning? Let's build our learning space together. Here's the toolbox that we have as researchers. What do you want to do? Final comments, maybe?
Yeah, I think that in that sense, Fab Labs are wonderful spaces for shared digital technologies where you can share projects and have them replicated in different parts of the world, and you can exchange knowledge in a very fast and accessible way. I think playgrounds are great resources for that too, in some ways. And communal spaces, kitchens, labs, everything, as long as it's shared, for sure.
Yeah, and also I really echo your point about access to technology. If you think about the speed at which science has to come out in order to keep up with everything that's going on, and it's just accelerating, and have access to just computing power will become a very important resource in the future. So yes, that has to be important point.
And just to close for 1 second, as an alumni from the Media Lab, and like having followed a little bit of this history of it, like I think that what made the Media Lab very important when it started was that it had very high-speed internet, and it was the one and only place where you could go and do it, right? But it was still a physical location where people from all these different disciplines were coming to use that one resource and apply it into their different disciplines, right? And that made some of the magic happen. I wonder what there is next, that could be like this. I mean, internet, of course, and the distribution of it, and the fact that we all have access to it and do different things with it. But what is that one resource that could be shared equally, that could, potentialize personal disciplines for everybody?
Fantastic.
Hope I was eloquent for 2 seconds at least.
Wonderful, yeah, and remarkable as well to do that after so much traveling. So from platform to bricolage, and from seeing technology as the solution to seeing technology as one of many beginnings of a learning opportunity. Thank you so much for helping us frame that. We should thank our this round. So let's fill our seats again. So clicking through to one final kind of conversation. So Lauren, we're going to be thinking about disciplines now. So I'm particularly keen to draw into the conversation those of you that hadn't had a chance to contribute, and I know there's some of our fellows who will have an opportunity to step forward as well. 3 different questions here about roles of partners, how universities can encourage interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary collaboration, and how we'll merge and these themes, how these emerging themes will reshape traditional boundaries. Maybe we can sort of merge those 2 sort of first questions together. We spoke quite a lot. You presented so eloquently and compellingly this morning what a university might be if it declined the 2 cultures of humanities and science, if it had, and that brilliant extension to our lexicon, not just a disciplinary perspective, we stay within our walled areas, not just a multidisciplinary perspective, we might do work acknowledging that there are other walled areas but we may not interact, not just interdisciplinary perspective where actually we stay in our area but we, maybe we learn from others, but that genuinely transdisciplinary approach where actually we look and we assemble and we come together and say, what's the problem? And you've been working in a brilliantly transdisciplinary way. You're not defining yourself by your disciplines. You're saying, what's the work that needs to be done? And let's bring our talent and our energy and our drive and our equity to that together. And together we will build a new vocabulary, we'll build new methodologies. You built a new model, a new conceptual model. That's you as transdisciplinary workers. But that last comment we had this morning about post-disciplinarity, is this just getting in the way? This whole kind of preoccupation with wanting to label a particular mode of thought and calling it a discipline. So please, I'm really keen to encourage up on the stage now and to be part of the fishbowl, those that want to talk about science and arts, humanities and digital, these questions around what is a discipline? Do we still need disciplines? Are we in the era of the end of the discipline? Will this new university of digital transformation, will it actually be an utterly new model for us to think about what disciplines need to be? There has been a rush of people onto the stage. Give me that microphone. Yeah, absolutely. Are you happy to speak first? Yeah, you happy to? Okay.
I was like, I have to go up because I study a program which is called cross-disciplinary strategies. So you can imagine it's all about disciplines, how to rethink disciplines, how to cross disciplines. And I think for that, I think in my head, it needs to go in the direction of post-disciplinarity. Because if we want really to step forward, we need to question how we see an expert. You can be an expert in one field, but how do you define a field? Where does it stop? Where does it start? Like we decided to say this is social science and this is computer engineering, and then we have people who start now computational social science. So maybe you can also be an expert in this field. We just define it that way. And I think it has to go away, maybe not finding more disciplines, but abolishing it after all. And thinking in it, or like how I like to work is take the methodologies of different disciplines and see it more as a toolkit. So I have this methodologies from, I work a lot with like biologists, how they work, but also social science methodologies and art methodologies, and just collect it together. So there's interesting ways for, or like the workshops we have in uni are also really interesting. Like there's people working on city planning, and then an industrial designer comes in and you build now a prototype of your project. Right. What does that mean? How does that look like? And I think when you start working like this, you create much more interesting and much more, like you get the new perspectives. So I think that's how I would see it going to in the future in this direction.
Oh my goodness, what a start. Our obsession with disciplines, and let's work backwards and think it's about where expertise is. It's a genius idea to start. Let's keep going. Where are we going next?
So I might be a little bit controversial here, but I think disciplines are nothing else than labels, and labels create groups, right? Groups and group thinking and being in an in-group and an out-group psychologically has a lot to do with survival, right? So we have to be mindful that labels and groups actually serve a purpose in evolutionary terms. So although we want to be interdisciplinary and we want to foster creativity and the working together, they still will hang around. And we're creating just a new label that's called interdisciplinary. It's exactly like, as humans, we fall into this trap, or we basically are conditioned to create groups and to create social structures. So although I don't have an answer for that, to be honest, I don't really know, but I think labels are still going to be with us for a very long time. So it's going to be hard to just say, oh, I'm not going to be a, I don't know, social scientist. My background is business and now psychology. And I can tell you they're very, very different. And they will still be with us for a very long time. So as human beings, we are evolving, but we still have an evolution behind us that probably we haven't quite caught up where we are now with technology. So it's going to be interesting, but I will say I doubt that labels are going to go away and disciplines are going to go away.
Those disciplinary labels, they give us identity, structure, and community straight away.
Exactly. Exactly. When you go into a group, the first thing you do is to figure out how you connect to other people within this group. And labels are just one way to do that. You talk to people about politics. You talk to people about, if you're in Australia, you talk about sports. If you're in Melbourne, where I come from, you talk about AFL. The first question is, what AFL team do you support? So you're always trying to figure out what your connection is with other people. So if we then think about not working interdisciplinary, we then have to figure out what will the connections be that we have with other people. How will we find our group that we're going to work with and that we're going to kind of integrate with in an interdisciplinary way?
Thank you. Wendy, did you want to come in here? Help us. How do we unknot this Gordian knot of what is a discipline and do we need it?
I don't know. I was thinking about a couple of different things that have come up, and also from the really great ideas that were coming up earlier before lunch. I mean, we're going to have disciplines, and we're going to have a breaking down of disciplines, because you do have to call it something. I mean, if everybody gets rid of their last names today, we're going to have a difficulty knowing what to call one another tomorrow. And even if those names evolve and change, that's okay, but we have to have somewhere to be able to start with. And I was also thinking about this, what happens if you have a university where everything is interdisciplinary and you don't call anything, and then at some point the interdisciplinary people need to be working and they don't know what they're working on because they don't have a background in mathematics or they don't have a background in biology. They have a background in a little bit of everything. And I think one of the things that's also important about disciplines is that the difference between do we become specialists, or do we gain skills and work in technology in the things that we love or the things that we need to learn to be able to make something happen. So how many of you have sat there and thought, oh God, I have to learn how to do this. I have to learn how to weld because what I envision requires welding. And I don't really want to learn how to weld. And so is that a discipline or is that not a discipline? And so the idea of, do you define yourself by what you can do? Do you define yourself by what you can love? Do you define yourself in a way that other people can understand you? If I tell you what I do, what I studied, are you going to understand what it is that I studied or not? And will people in 20 years understand what I studied and why? And so and another quick thing regarding the role of external partners. So I live in Austria. Every person that works in the volunteer fire departments, they are specialists in cultural heritage of the buildings around here because they have to know how they're built, they have to know how to rescue them from fires. And so you have this other layer of people who are disciplinary specialists in something, but they're actually just part of the Freiwillige Feuerwehr.
Yeah, so I'm not so skeptical at all. No. I think the students this morning showed that actually you can be post-disciplinary and find a home in that. Because they acted as a group and felt a sense of belonging, even though they were interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary or post-disciplinary. So I think that's not something to be afraid of. What excites me a lot is to bring these kind of methodologies and this prototyping and this visual techniques that you use to like the traditional disciplines. For example, I come from biology originally, which is a very standardized, very standardized discipline. But if you create an artwork with Charlotte Jarvis on the future of wombs or on what did you do with her exactly, on biotechnology, bioart, how cool would it be to present that again to the biologist? To kind of bring it back to the discipline you borrow from or the methodology you borrow and then bring it back to the people that have no clue what these artistic practices that you use are. So I think it can be very valuable to be aware of the disciplines, to be aware of like the campfires that are there and the people you can talk to and just knock on these doors and show them what you're doing because that's also the way that they are going to change their methods and ways and be open to more interdisciplinary people.
We do have a couple more minutes before we wrap this particular section. Do I have any other people that would like to come up? Join us. I see, yeah, one. Come on up, come on up.
Team. Thank you.
Do we have more? Okay.
Our final couple of minutes then. Thank you. So please, would you like to start first?
Just to reply to that. So I completely agree with what you said. I'm not saying that that interdisciplinary work isn't valuable and shouldn't be pursued. Absolutely not. I think I'm more encouraging you in general to think about the biases that we have and putting labels on things is something that humans do if you want it or not. So take it as you wish, but you just have to deal with it at some stage.
Yeah, I believe that we can also not take it so severely and see interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity also as as an energy or a space that can be. And I would say, as a person who started out in art school where, it's like, wow, pretty utopian, which is also nice when you're in a university because you're safe and you can think, you can have this environment where you can think big. But I never felt so welcome to go and look over the shoulder of an engineer. Thankfully, this has changed somewhat over time. But if I just knew that in the air there was an openness to collaborate or an openness to these exchanges, then I would feel much safer to go in. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's got to be I'm gonna like drop my disciplinary hat and be this like weird blob in the middle. But it's more that like I'm welcome to it, and maybe the synergies come together and something does happen, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like we're gonna die because we don't have our labels.
I'm going to bring us to our final kind of comment before we have a moment of kind of hygiene and cleanup. Oh, okay, last two comments.
Yeah, I don't want to define interdisciplinarity, but I just wanted to share my experience from, I don't know how many years in academia. Interdisciplinary scholars need to think in a very tactical way how they go about their careers, because the ugly truth is that on the job market you have a huge disadvantage. Everyone always praises interdisciplinarity, but it's harder to get a tenure track position if you describe yourself as interdisciplinary. So my recommendation is use disciplines as an infrastructure. Don't look at them as a prison. So the skill of a transdisciplinary researcher is to be able to basically to use these labels to their advantage and change them when necessary. You have many hats, just switch them and make sure that your added value of a, let's say, bigger context that you know because of your interdisciplinary background, you see more than other people and use that to your advantage. That was just like what I observed, and I don't want to qualify whether it is good or bad, but it's in many places the reality.
Seeing these problems in the round, it's what the fish bowls are like. You have the honor of the final comment.
I just wanted to share an observation. I agree with Gerhard that labels will stick, and I think we should be aware of the role that these labels play in, the interaction between the university and society. Universities are a lot about creating legitimacy. When policymakers do something, they need some experts saying that that's a good idea. And usually you need an expert in an area that is relevant for the kind of stuff that you're going to do. For example, economics is the master discipline. If you're an economist and you say some policy is good because it drives growth, that gives you a lot of legitimacy. Now, I think that it's important to, rethink how we do that, and interdisciplinary teams might be an answer to, overcoming that. But I think it's a fact that, disciplines play a very strong role in this imagination of what the expert is who gives legitimacy to certain plans.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful, thank you. We should give a round of applause to our final fishbowl contributors.
Okay, so in our final couple of minutes, this is just the start of the conversation, right? And there are going to be questions that we haven't asked. And so if you did scan the document, you saw some of what we call clean the tank questions. So we want you to think about what were the questions that weren't asked, whether it was this morning that didn't come up or through today's conversation here on the stage just now, or what did you agree with? What sat well with you? What didn't sit so well with you? How would you want to explore these topics further? How might we get more curious about these different structures, about these labels, about the way in which we convene, communicate, collaborate, and be in community with one another? So, Ross, final thoughts before we close?
It's not for us to conclude or sum up or synthesize or to open the envelope and tell you what the answer is. The solutions, the ways forward, the futures are yours. And you're going to be our navigators and leaders. You showed us this morning that the futures for this university will be about building something that's absolutely experimental, but also something that is experiential as well. It'll be the whole body, and it'll be that body in the world and aware of that. You showed us in your conceptual model a future university that will be both at an individual level, an interpersonal level, highly empathetic, but also at a societal level, looking out, seeing the systems and the ecosystems, highly expansive as well. Everything that this university will do, you told us in the core of your model, will be equitable and it will be ethical. And we need to demand of ourselves and of our leaders and our funders exactly what does that mean for a university, so that we can remove and erase those power structures that are there inherently within that organization of the university. Hundreds of years worth of hierarchy that's baked into that structure. You're smashing that down. And finally, you said, most importantly, this is going to be about play, it's going to be about heart, it's going to be about imagination. And the word I wrote down so many times this morning, this is going to be so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
We thank you for your time and your energy. And we've had a little bit of a switch in the schedule, the agenda. So we're going to have a 30-minute break, and we'll come back at 1400 at 4 o'clock. So you have 30 minutes to rest, get rejuvenated before the rest of the day. All right? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back. This extraordinary education day, this intersection, this nexus between the extraordinary 75, the students that have been working over the last couple of weeks, engaging, reflecting upon these challenges and problems across, underneath, through disciplinary boundaries, but also our fellows today as well. We're so excited that the fellows have joined us, and those other guests and friends that are in the room today as well. We welcome all of you, and thank you for your participation, not just through the keynote this morning, but in the fishbowl over the last sort of hour and a half as well. I have one job now, which is to get off the stage as quickly as possible. This is such a privilege to be the person that gets to introduce all this work, these 2 weeks, these 75 people, these many countries, these many disciplinary focuses, these different levels of university experience and life experience, the diversity of people that have come together to reflect upon this profound question of our future university. We should begin, as we're going to end in about an hour's time, with a very heartfelt, loving, caring, warm round of applause for the students.
Thank you for being here and still be around at this time. I'm Benedict. Hi.
And I'm Shutanuka. Hello.
And we would like to present to you the stuff we have been doing the past 2 weeks now. And we are very proud what came out. So, yeah.
Yes, so we have been working for 3 weeks with Ars Electronica and Founding Lab. And when we first came, we were very privileged to be divided into topic groups. And we have a total of 6 topic groups of 75 students. Let me quickly go through which members will be presenting today in the topic groups. So first is new materials and robotics. I will be presenting for this topic, followed by Benedict. He will be presenting creative robotics. After that, we have the biotechnology. We have the sensing signal detection and interactivity by Yongjun. And followed by Nathan, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and database. And then we have the subgroup 3, where Anand will be presenting biotechnology and arts, followed by Louisa, brain-computer interface. So maybe we should start with me. So hello everyone, my name is Shutanuka, and for our first presentation, I would like you to go through the beautiful world of origami and robotics. And we were very, very privileged to work with Mr. Matthew Gardner, whom I will want to introduce you to. And we had a facilitator called Chiara. And Mr. Matthew was very, very kind to us to provide some insights on origami and how we actually fell in love with the topic of origami and robotics in a way. Along with our friends, whose name is right there, and they're also sitting there, some of them. But yeah, so let me take you through the subject. So we were having a workshop with Mr. Matthew Gardner in Arts Electronica Future Lab for 2 days straight. And this topic was new material and robotics. And in this workshop, Mr. Gardner was very kind enough to show us around the lab and take us through the beautiful origami robotics that was there. And we were introduced to how sensor works with the perception of nature and how everything is actually connected. The way he spoke about nature and the new technology merging together to form a perspective was really, really beautiful. And at the end of the workshop, we were able to create these beautiful flowers. Each one had like one flower, which is very with sensors. So it was had motion sensors, soil moisture sensors, and also light sensors. Next, so after our workshop, we also had this 1 day of public demonstration. So what happened in public demonstration was more about, we wanted to understand how people nowadays perceive robotics and nature in a way. So one of our topic question in our public demonstration was, do you perceive those flowers as a machine or as a nature or as a gift, as a flower? It was very surprising to see that most of the people whom we took survey from chose flower, because the robotics, the robotics was actually reacting exactly like a flower. It was sensitive, it was like a petal forming. So that is when we started to discuss on the topic that how can we perceive time through origami? How can we perceive time to robotics? And how can we perceive temporality, in another word, in human-robotic interaction using origami? So I have a video presentation where I actually am explaining a more philosophical perspective of how we perceive time through origami and how our teammate, each of us, has a very beautiful perception and very different way of acknowledging the concept of time and concept of technology and concept of how everything merges together into art. So I hope the video sound works. Let's see.
The act of folding, much like the blooming of a flower, is a testament to human creativity and ingenuity. Origami, the ancient art of folding paper into intricate forms, invites us to ponder the nature of transformation and change. At its core, origami embodies a static moment, frozen in time, like a photograph, capturing a single instance of beauty. However, in the modern era, we introduce the element of time through the marriage of origami and robotics.
Where we're going to be able to do incredible things, but also at this very massive scale where architectures, things that we need in space, things that can unfold.
It falls back and you don't have to make cuts, you don't have to put screws, it stays the same unified material, It just has the folds, and the folds, this memory of your act, it makes it work.
In nature's origami, I think of caterpillars. The origami folding changes, the caterpillar moves like this. And as time passes, caterpillars shed their skin to keep growing. You can see time building up, just like how creatures make origami.
You know how you can estimate the age of people by looking at them. And you know how you can see, like, for example, I have a good guess of how old a tree is by just looking at the tree.
Origami perceive only the corners of time
existing in non-Euclidean space that the human mind has not evolved to comprehend.
Can we breathe life, or at least the illusion of life, into an art form that was once purely static? Robotics, with its mechanical choreography, bestows upon origami the capacity to evolve and unfold, creating an illusion of dynamic existence.
This brings us to the question of asking, is time an abstract construct, an ever-flowing lever, or can it be captured within the folds and creases of paper and the algorithms of machine? Are we, by imparting motion to origami through technology, transcending the boundaries of time, or are we merely manipulating our perceptions of it? Moreover, the importance of origami and robotics invites the introspection into the intersection of tradition and innovation. Are we breathing new life into the ancient practice, thus introducing its legacy? Or are we fundamentally alternating its essence? Does the fusion of tradition and technology represent a harmonious evolution or a paradoxical clash of the worlds? In contemplating these questions, we delve into a philosophical depth of origami and robotics, where the boundaries between art, time, tradition, and innovation blur, inviting us to reconsider our response of reality, creativity, and the march of time itself. Thank you.
So, hello everybody again. I'm happy to present you our team, the Creative Robotics team. And as you can see here, we had the pleasure to work together with Spot. Spot is the robot dog from Boston Dynamics. And this was made possible thanks to Johannes Braumann and Amir Bastan, our workshop hosts. And also I would like to thank the whole team and the great discussions and conversations we had about this topic. And yeah, here is our team. But now let's get to the project itself. We discussed a lot about the interplay between human and machine and their visual engagement. So we focused on the human gaze, but also on the robot's perspective. So for example, Spot has like 5 cameras inside, and then we asked ourselves who is actually watching whom. And we came up with some ideas we want to try out with Spot. For example, we wanted to have Spot as an inspection tool almost, where someone sits in front of him and he's like engaging with you and yeah, looking at you. And then we also wanted to have Spot observing itself. And afterwards we went out into the public and tried to cross some pathways of other people and animals to see how they are going to react to Spot. And yeah, another idea was like Spot walking in a perfect square to show some kind of territory. But actually, I will show you a video and it becomes more clear to you.
Yes. That is the time that the robot establishes a really can pass them through some exactly. I know that.
I might have to cut it short because of the time. So what have we learned from our experience with Spot? I think the topic has potential to teach us a lot about ourselves, actually, because we as humans like to, we try to long for connection, and so we anthropomorphize Spot, and we then ask ourselves what actually is Spot. And I noticed that we are kind of projecting our own emotions onto him, and projecting something he actually isn't, but it's more like a reflection of ourselves, how we are feeling towards this technology. And for example, someone said like, "Oh, he's so cute," or the other person said like, "Oh, I'm really afraid of it." And so we came to the conclusion that maybe technology is more an extension of ourselves, or a kind of mirror. And it was really interesting for us to see like the ambivalence between like our technical fascination towards it, but also our fear of the unknown, because we never like engage with such a tool or robot. So those are points I would really like to experiment more in the University of the Future. Thank you.
Hello. This is my group, and our topic group's name was Sensing and Signal Detection and Interactivity. And we had Barbara as facilitator, and me and my colleagues had a wonderful workshop together with Miller Puckett. He's a pioneering computer musician and also a significant contributor in real-time audio performance. And together, we went to a public space with a bunch of private sounds to create, interact, and somehow detect the invisible connections we can make. So, as we, every day, I believe, we are always at the intersection of a vast amount of sounds, and some are dismissed as noise, but some are perceived as signals. But there's a lot more sounds in between those spectrums, and we were curious if we could take these sounds into account for social interaction. So we as students living in an era of digital science, I think nowadays digital science allows us to imbue and discover meanings from the most common and trivial events or signals or sensory experiences. Therefore, we were compelled to ask this question: how do sounds blur the lines between private realms and public spectacles? So what we did is we discussed about how we like to bring our own sounds as a network of our own sounds, and then inject this new soundscape into the existing space. So we went to the Hofbahnhof. I believe many people here has also passed by the tram station, and there we tried to read the condition of the public space, and also checked out our device, which was our laptop built-in speaker, so that we could get a understanding of how far our sounds can reach if we were using this laptop, and setting up rules to how we could use and interact with this space. And in the following day, of the exploration, we did a 30-minute performance-like experiment, which ended up being kicked out by security by just disturbing the existing soundscapes. So I will show a video of what we did. Oh, there's no video. Oh, okay. Yeah, there's no video, so I might explain a bit more from this slide. So we started like that from the ground floor, and then we had like a score, like a music score, but for this type of performance. And our movement was based on like flocking algorithm. It's the collective behavior that you can observe in nature, like how birds like make a swarm, so that we can stay within the distance of each other's speakers, but also with a bit of autonomy, so that we can also enjoy the sonic blend that we are bringing into this space, and also providing our own sounds to those who are within our proxemics. So this is one of our teammates just being natural with his laptop turning on speakers. And we had a like software. It may be too light to call it software, but we had a program, a patch made by Miller. I will explain later. And this one, if we had a signed port, so that each of you have a node of a network, and then if you send a signal, you can turn on the samples of other people's laptop, but you don't know who's turning on yours. So it's a very simple setup, but it creates a really like a random interaction within us. And these sound samples, we used prepared sound samples, not only prepared sound samples, but also we recorded on site. But I was talking about private sounds, and what we prepared for each of ourselves was we brought out like the sounds that we put affection on it, or sometimes just some samples that you want to turn it on the public space, such like bathroom flush in the middle of the square. And personally, I brought some samples from my hometown. I'm from Korea, and I brought some audio that I can hear from subway station in Korea, and I was curious if people would react if I turn on a sound that I got from my train station into this train station. So this is the overview of the program we dealt with, but this is probably was the most convenient part, because this is a program called Pure Data, and it is actually made by our mentor. So he's the creator of this program, and you can see him working on it, and we were just giving him ideas. We were very free from coding, the dirty stuff. So he set it up, everything from the network and like recording and playing, like all those sampler type of parts. So we had a really privileged moment, so that most of us didn't have any background in public computer music performances, but we were very freed from those digital literacy and allowed to collaboratively shape the idea for the project, focusing more on how we could design this experiment, the sonic experience that we would try to create. And I wouldn't argue that this is always the type of future university that we would like to have, having a really fancy technician as our mentor. I don't think it can happen always, but yeah, our group has a opportunity, such like getting a glimpse of those very innocent moments that we became like a child in a playground of computer music, thanks to our mentor. So at the end, for the visualization, which you can see on the exhibition site, with respect to Miller, we maintained the aesthetics of pure data and created our final visualization. I think audio is not in, so you can, if you are curious about the audio, you can check it out by yourselves. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is what you can see in their booth. So all these groups have a little zone out there and round the corner with our faces on the walls, and you can listen to the music or the soundscape that they made through the headphones attached to it, and you can watch this. I was doing it in the break actually. It was quite fun. Right. Or do you want to? Yeah. So I was in the machine learning AI database group. This was not something that I knew anything about when I started, and I was quite surprised to be in the group. But I think this goes along with a lot of what people have been saying all day about the idea of taking technology and playing with it and having a sort of play-adjacent learning experience, because our facilitator, who's called Sarah Siston, she writes zines that explain critical AI, which is kind of like now that artificial intelligence, machine learning models, all of this stuff is available, it's accessible, we can use it. It's almost like we've got these guys had Miller Puckett to do their coding for them. It's like we had ChatGPT to be an AI for us, kind of. I mean, I know it's a bit different, but like the accessibility of technology changes the way that we can interact with it. So we were able to have quite a playful experience doing games that some games were trying to use AI, some were trying to challenge what people think about AI. Some of it was trying to help us understand the way that mechanical learning kind of works, and maybe the elements that we can do bits of it or not, and the way that what goes in is what comes out. Sort of it's opening the black box technology kind of principle. So we were actually going for research tensions rather than research questions because it was more exploratory. But essentially, I'm louder now. Essentially, it's how can this critical interaction with AI change the way we see the world? Because now when everyone's talking about AI, you see a lot of people go, oh, we're going to use AI and it's going to change the world. But there's no real discussion about what it's for, what it's going to be, how people are going to interact with it. That's not the dominant thing you hear. And I was really excited to learn more because I've heard a lot of weird information, a lot of strange, fearful messages. But actually interacting with people who understand and who have different ideas, this critical AI stuff is a really good bridger for interdisciplinary thinking. So here's our games. We also did a little bit of origami for the little paper hat. For the computer. So we made 3 games initially, and none of them worked that well. It rained, so nobody came to play with us really. But we found some friends eventually. The first one, the free fruit game, was designed as a way to show people from one side to the other how a rule that a machine learning system or an AI knows is the technical, it's a tool, right? It's not an intelligence the way we think of it. So what goes in is what comes out. So you would see a display and it would say, is this a pear? And you'd have a picture of a kiwi and you'd say, no, that's not a pear. And the AI or the program would say, yes, it is a pear. And you'd have to guess why. And spoiling the display for you, it's because it's green. So effectively the rule that was in there was green things are pears. That rule is the principle, and humans have to interact with that and guess that. But from the other angle, people have expectations when they see these games. And the third one over there is a similar principle because they tried to play a kind of tic-tac-toe with no deliberate rules. All of these are kind of rule-hidden games because we were playing with the idea that machine learning models work with rules and humans do as well, but in slightly fluid, different ways. So we think that the AIs might do things that we can't see because it's of a greater complexity than we can kind of wrestle with internally, but at the same time, people work with rules that they don't know about. So that one was a tic-tac-toe where you don't know the rules, so you have to put an X in a square on the board, and you're not told where you're allowed to put it and where you're not, and you can go and try that later as well. And then the one in the middle, we made ties out of paper for some reason. I'm not quite sure on that one, but we thought it would be fun to try. There's a card game where you sort of prank your friend because you don't tell your friend the rules, and the rules are you have to get rid of all your cards, and there's a secret rule that everyone else knows and you don't. And we thought it would be fun if the AI made the rule. So the AI made a rule for the card game that you could only put a card down if you put it down with your non-dominant hand, first touching your nose and then putting it down. And we tried it on our friends, and it took them a really long time to work that one out. It was very annoying. And in that way, the AI is complicit in the prank. And then the other way around, we were trying to work out how we could get the AI to try to guess the rule, as if it's all of us sitting in a room and the AI is there and we're trying to get it to guess how we're trying to prank it. So it's like it's kind of joking around, and it's kind of a little bit childish, but it was kind of an accessible way to interact with quite complicated and quite like media heavy right now technology. And eventually, so we did these 3 games, and eventually it became a visualization that's in there in our booth, which we called the AI Arcade. And people are invited to come in and sort of play with it and explore the ways that it makes them feel and think about artificial intelligence. So in our diagram that Anand made, essentially we have what it means to be human, what it means to be more than human. So there's the non-human but still life kind of part, and then there's the machines and mechanisms and materials section at the bottom, where AI kind of relates back, because there's the idea that we have the generative agency, that we can create stuff, but when you use AI as a generative tool, it kind of subverts that, even though it doesn't, because what goes in is what comes out. When you don't think about it too hard, it kind of feels creative. So we wanted to use that as a way to joke with people and get it kind of demystified. Who's doing biotech? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Anand, and I am an architect to be, and my research is focused on the so-called modern human architecture, hence those weird diagrams that was keep showing on the screen. So I was also feeling so homely to be in the bioarts group, because this group is made up of such fantastic people, and the entire mission of this 2-week workshop is to explore the idea of care through so many different ways. And I was so lucky that I learned so much from my peers about care in so many different forms. And also our facilitators, Bart, Lara, have always been so fantastic. And our speakers, Patricia and Charlotte, one is a scientist, another one is an artist, basically form this kind of parenthood for our entire experience. And as I said, this entire workshop was about care, and we had this very initial question about care. What kind of narratives can we generate as a collective, and for whom through care? So basically through this workshop, we were trying to discover the idea of methodology, a narrative that can be used to collectively tell the story of care. Because we believe that care is not a construct of feminist theory. It's something that we humans all share. It's something that's beyond gender differentiations and different backgrounds. And so the workshop is based on Charlotte and Patricia's project, which has been running for several years, which is called the Collective Uterus. And through this project, they were trying to explore the idea of production rights and the idea of the agency of the organs of production and people of all genders in the production. And based on this initial idea, we had a sort of intervention of care. So we did this so-called performative intervention. So the mission was very simple. We had to transport the collective uterus from founding lab to Ars Electronica. But through this journey, we have to protect it because it's something really fragile and something that hasn't been made entirely. So through this journey, we made it a performance, a procession. So as a beginning stage, we sort of painted all the lab codes so that it's something sends a strong signal, but not so strong because we didn't want it to be a propaganda or protest. Something like a clothes that people wear, which can make the audience feel intimate, but also trying to push forward the questions that we want to ask. And with that, as a sort of background, we went on this journey, this procession, and so we basically transported the uterus all the way in the tram, in the rain, and on the road. It was actually fascinating because on that day it was raining and we had to basically use our umbrellas to protect the uterus and to protect each other. And through this kind of active way of performance of care, we were also exploring the idea of collective care. To whom should we care for and through what kind of process should we care for? I was asked to put this image really large because Amanda's favorite image, so that someone from the tram that we didn't know before, and at some point Patricia was starting to sort of having a read out session of the poetry that she wrote about uterus. And so fascinating to see how the audience who didn't know the language that Patricia was using at all to write a poem, and how they were kind of touched by only the sound only, and how our performance was sort of beyond language and culture. And also the idea of collective care was also they sort of always appeared in the procession procedure. And we cared for each other because we didn't want each other to get a cold. And we cared for for speakers, and we cared for the organ. And building on all of these ideas, we had this booth and the expo exhibition device. Which by the way is somewhere there. So if you are interested, you can have a look. We were trying to build on the idea of care through this intimate structure that provides a temporary sitting or a place for anyone who wants to have a rest or have a talk. It's really a simple idea, but somehow it's powerful because when people are immersed with that intimate space, they somehow are more open to their own vulnerability, and they can share each other with their sadness, with their fear, in this kind of temporary but intimate, ephemeral space. And so what we have learned from this journey is that bioart is not science, it's not art, it's something in between, it's a process. And care itself is also a material process. The labor of care is tiring, but it's material, it requires commitment. And through that journey, through the process of care, we are all cared for. And performative research itself is both fundamental in nature and process-driven. It is not dictamous, but transformative. It is a journey that has the power to shift, to change, to evolve, and to reform. And since that's also basically the definition of human, every human being has the ability to grow, to evolve, and to reform. We believe that queerness is not something that differentiates people. Everyone is queer in a way because we all have the ability to transform. And nature itself is also queer because nature is about growth. So I guess the conclusion for our workshop is that nature is queer and the journey is all important.
I have come to this stage again. Hello, I'm Louisa, as you probably know at this point. I was from the brain-computer interface team. We worked with Christoph Guger from GTEC and Anouk Wieprecht, and we had our facilitators Regina and Adaze. We had a team that was mostly consisting of cis women, and I think in a way, not only cis women, but mostly, in a way I think that kind of, not biased, but it really guided our conversation, and humanities-based people. We probably had one of the most interesting topics, but at the same time, because of some time constraints, we couldn't really develop something very technically substantial. So we ended up focusing more on the discussions that we could have about what these brain-computer interfaces actually meant. So we started by talking and dividing some research questions. And one of the things that we decided to focus on is whether different minds, they react differently to the same action or stimulus or input. From the perspective that in order to use these devices, you need to have a certain degree of attention and focus, and we wanted to see if there are certain types of movement that could improve that kind of activity. We had, here you can see our team members, they were wearing this cap, the unicorn cap, and they had to control with their thoughts this little ball robot. And we changed colors whenever we changed the mental strategy to see if anything helped it move better. But one of the things that happened was that our team members felt extremely vulnerable by having something that was reading their thoughts. And then we started to think about the aspect of transparency, honesty, and vulnerability, and whether when you have like this, you're displaying your brain information, you're actually talking about being honest, the extent to which this is actually showing your real thoughts. Is this honesty? Is this transparency? So can we have some sort of computer-mediated honesty? And in that, we developed the idea of a mask, like a screen, that you can have a screen that's going to show your brain information. So if I do that, if I show you, we had people with neurodivergent people in our team, so they thought, if I can show you the amount of stress that I have going on in my brain right now, is this gonna change the way you're gonna treat me? Or for women, if I'm going through a particularly difficult period in my hormonal cycle, if I can show you like the level of stress that I'm experiencing right now, is this gonna change the way you treat me? Is this gonna improve our communication? So we talked a lot about that. If these brain-computer interfaces, they can help foster more understanding of the different ways that people think and navigate the world. Yeah, we did talk a lot about how they can also mediate these conversations, how we were talking earlier today. You see, everything's connected, the conversations, the points that we've been discussing. But we also talked a lot about how if I'm using these devices to mediate my thoughts, the sort of impact that they actually have on my thoughts. So can we create a sort of feedback loop between the brain and the machine? Can we communicate with the machine with intimacy? All of these thoughts, but at the same time, we don't have a conclusion yet. All of this is still a bit not distant because we worked with devices that are quite accessible, but it's accessible but still not really present. So we really don't know what's going to happen, but that's what we've been thinking. RBCIs and computer-mediated transparency, the answer to our communication problems. And yeah, we don't have an answer for that, so I'll leave you with that.
And so that basically brings us to the conclusion part of all the 6 topic groups. I mean, it's a very short time. We only had like 2 weeks to develop everything, so everything was still rough, and we all feel like we could have done better. There's always something that we can develop more. And I think that's the nature of a summer school because it's always so short. But I think what's important is that what we've learned from this, something that's fluid, something that can be applied in a much grander level. It's really interesting to see that when you basically bring all the 6 topic groups together, you create this diagram, which basically would have the ability to discuss the agency of knowledge production. So that in history, as a starting point, we always started to think about knowledge production as the Vitruvian man, what ability of the Vitruvian man would have, like who's always regarded as the artist, the creator, who is basically independent from all the other roles in society. And then we realized that's sort of very limited idea. We also need to include the gendered, racialized, and marginalized people and roles in the discussion of knowledge production. And at some points in history, we also realized that maybe it's not enough to discuss humans in knowledge production only, because when we talk about non-humans, like organisms and machines, they also have the agency in the current discussion of knowledge. So it's a process of eco-vitalization and reflection. And so, for example, by combining the idea of the gendered and marginalized role and non-human organisms, we've discussed the idea of care in bioart by combining the idea of non-human robots and humans, and basically how they reflect each other and how humans can learn from the robots. We've developed the idea of creative robotics, etc. and etc. So I guess what we have learned is not only the 6 topic groups that can only last for 2 weeks. It's something goes beyond this short time. I believe that we have learned about care, reflection, communication, interaction, perception in this system. And so in the end, I guess it's not about the 6 topic groups anymore. So, and when talking about new materials and robotics, we were having discussion of time, how we perceive time. Do non-humans also have the agency to perceive time? When we talk about robotics, it's about how do we reflect each other. When we talk about machine learning and data bias and AI, it's about vitalization of each entity, even though they are non-human. When we talk about interaction and composition, and it's always the question of how do we interact with the humans, others, and the non-human others. And of course, when we talk about bioart, it's always a gesture of care. When we talk about computer and brain interface, it's about communication. So I guess it's a short time after all, but these 6 keywords can somehow be fundamental to the construction of a new university, because they are not only values that we've learned from an academic perspective, they can also be an input for, they can basically be the pillars for a new university which values diversity, transdisciplinary, and collaboration. And so I guess that's also something that we can keep thinking about even for our entire lifetime, because these are questions that we may never be able to solve. But as what we have presented in the presentation, the process is all that important. And I thank you all. I'm feel that we, everyone who created this opportunity for us all, so that we get to be in the process. I guess that's it. Thank you so much.
They say that a theory, when you come up with a new theory, you've got to have 3 things. You've got to have a predication. You've got to have a set of core assumptions. Then you've got to have an articulation. You've got to have vocabulary in terms of reference. And then you've got to have a logic. You've got to have a method, a way of working. So you've got to know where you're starting from, how you're going to articulate and communicate, and how you're going to proceed. So, you need that foundation, that lexicon and that logic. That's what you've done. You were asked to reflect upon what it would be like to prototype thinking and activity in a new university. So the act of coming together, the act of assembly itself, your diversity, reflecting a new way of coming together and holding a space together in higher education. You were asked to show us what learning could look like, a collaborative form of learning you showed us, a equitable, ethical, experiential, experimental, energetic, exciting form of learning. And you were
tasked with showing us what the art of the possible might be, what could be made in that extraordinary, inventive, innovative, transparent space. You've done so much more than that. Through giving us a set of core values, giving us a vocabulary, and actively demonstrating how to convene and show up and work together, you've built a theory. You've built a theory of how to be a university in the 21st century. So we're going to do a couple of things, and then we're going to give the biggest round of applause that you've given in your life. But before we get there, 7:30, train hall, open event where you're formally shared with the world. You're our little beautiful secret at the moment, but you'll be shared with the rest of the world. Thank you for your contribution, the fellows that have stepped forward and leaned in throughout the day, the other supporters and other hosts and speakers and parts of IDSA and Ars Electronica and the venue that have helped us, including the technicians and the support on the cameras and the sound that have made this all work smoothly today. Thank you very much for all your talent as well. But our final thank you should go to not us, but the students whose day it has been today. Thank you so much. We cannot wait to see what you do next. Ladies and gentlemen, the students.